7 o'clock, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Misty, would you call the roll, please?
Hal Glanville,
Here.
J.R. Huddleston,
Here.
Deborah Johnston, Bill Luken,
Here.
Travis Orbach,
Here.
Larry Pratt,
Here.
Gary Telkamp,
Here.
Linda Barbell. Here. Thank you.
Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As always, council, if you have a conflict of interest on any item, please let council know before you vote on that. I got a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Make a motion to approve the next agenda.
Anybody? Okay, Larry. Second, J.R.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And can I get a motion to waive council pay for this special meeting?
Make a motion to waive council pay for a special meeting. Second.
Ms. Wall.
Yep.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Does anyone from the public want to address the council? All right, so that gets us into discussing the 2025 budget. I'd like to ask Misty to go ahead and get us started. She does a good job of explaining where we're at. Each of you have her budget notes that she practices each year. So Misty, if you get us started, and then after she's done, I have a few comments I'd like to.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I begin preparing for the 2025 budget in May, just about the time we're wrapping up our audit for the last year. By June 13th, I sent all department heads preliminary budget worksheets for them to update and return, and I set a deadline of the 12th of July, giving them almost a month to work through the categories that I didn't pre-fill for them. Out of 10 department heads to receive my email with the deadline, 5 responded by the deadline. As of today, I still don't have one of them, which affects 2 departments in the general fund. I want to recognize Ivan at the airport, Billy and the crew in maintenance, which is one of the hardest because they have so many. Gabby in recreation, who for the first time ever gave me a spreadsheet to estimate wages for recreation based on activities. I've asked for that for several years, and she was the first to do that. Ross from the police department, and Jason from the golf course. This process isn't new to many of these department heads and employees, and it's too important for us to allow this type of response. So I did ask the city administrator to provide some type of guidance to those who are unresponsive, and it did generate 4 of the 5 that hadn't responded yet to get them to me. So, as of today, the budget presented to you has revenue in all funds of $9,095,777 and projected expenses of $10,358,362. So we have a lot of work to do. I think some lessons to learn about budget consciousness throughout the year as well. To break that up by fund for you in our general fund, we have $710,280 as a projected loss. In our additional sales tax fund, I think we're adding $20,000 to this. We'll talk about that when we get to it. Was 20 the number we settled on after that meeting? For the boring?
My second wag was 50.
50? Oh, okay, so I'm at 50 of this. So that's $601,947 that the 212 fund is projecting for loss. The 602, the water fund, is projecting an $18,177 loss. The 604 wastewater fund, it was up to like 385,000, but thank you, Bob, for getting that down a little bit, and that was projecting a $14,856 loss, which for these two funds, that's not in compliance with our debt service reserve agreement that we have for our SRF loans. We're supposed to have 110% excess in revenue compared to our loan payment, so any kind of deficit we want to address. And then the golf course fund, $240,532 is a projected loss, and the Evans Plunge Fund, $286,785. We'll review the revenue projections and get to some of the easier expenditures tonight. The hopes to wrap up by 9 or a little bit before. And that's all I have to get us started.
As we've done the last couple of years, at some point when people start getting hungry, we do have stuff in the back, so thank you to everyone who's brought something. And we often take a short break just to kind of get everything, then we come back and work while we're at it. So it's back there when we're ready. I want to thank Misty and Bob for getting us this far. But I do want to talk, and Misty's already talked a little bit about expenditures far exceed revenue. And for the folks that had an opportunity to go to the South Dakota Municipal League training, especially Rockport, with the Department of Legislative Office, South Dakota requires a balanced budget. There are two ways you can do it. You can have a structurally balanced budget, where your revenue your revenue meets your expenditures. That's a balanced budget. Since I've been involved with council, I don't think we've had many situations where we've actually had a structurally balanced budget. The other way you can do it is take money out of savings, and that's what we have been doing for a while. And the difficult thing this year is we've got a number of things that we'll talk about that will be coming out of savings. So as we go through revenue and as we go through the expenditures, I just want everybody to be aware of those things that are potentially going to hit savings harder than they have in the past. As Misty said, we're starting out with a pretty significant deficit. The other thing that we'll talk about, and she has in her budget notes, we have a loan agreement with DOT to pay for our sidewalk. And that's a 10-year loan, and we got it for 2%? 1%? 1%.
Great interest.
We haven't taken any money on that loan yet, so we're not obligated to it as such. We need to have the serious discussion if we want to go ahead and pay that loan off with a combination of our general fund and our additional sales tax.
Can I just clarify, it would actually be just not drawing on it.
Well, I was
And
gonna say,
we'll never activate it, yeah, so there's no interest owed, or if we just wouldn't pay, so far we have about 50,000 left of the original 2.8 we got from the state.
So, thank you.
So you're saying you're planning on us proposing that we don't use it at all?
Yes,
Okay.
that will be part of the discussion. And if we choose to not use the loan, then we've got to figure out where we're going to come up with the 1.9 million that we know it's going to take to finish the construction of that suspended sidewalk. That's going to be money savings. So that's in addition to the shortfall that we already have. We then also have our historic lighting that is in savings. That started out at, I think it was about 420 is what's been set aside for that. We're obviously getting close to the end of the road reconstruction. The state does not expect their money until the project is done. Well, that'll be at the end of the year. So that would be another $420,000 that we'd be taking out of savings. Council will be asked to approve the purchase of a front end loader for the water department. Public safety has been talking to you folks about that.
Is that for water or for streets?
For street. We had originally considered a lease, thinking that the payment would be less than, but the interest on that little high, so you're gonna be asked to approve the actual purchase of that. That's gonna be money that's going out of savings. And then Misty had mentioned a couple council meetings ago, that's initiated Measure 28, which has to do with sales tax on human consumables. We don't know where that's gonna end up, whether the voters will approve that or not, and if they do, whether the state is gonna have any kind of offset funding for that. The state themselves are gonna lose money on those, or whether there'll be anything available to us. So, could be upwards of $700,000 for that, that we won't have available, possibly in 2026. So there's large amounts of money that would need to come out of savings, and we need to be aware of that as we go through these different budgets. And we need to be, in my mind, super critical of what we approve, trying to save as much as we can as we look at all the different departments. We'll get into different departments, and I'll have comments related to those also. And the $1.9 million for the sidewalk, the council wants to go in that direction. $420,000 for historic lights, and I also included wayfinding in there. That will be part of the conversation that we get into as far as the signage in here. Front end loader for $250,000. We don't know where we're gonna be as far as the initiated measure. Now is not the time to hit savings hard trying to balance budget. We need to get as close as we can to having that structurally balanced budget. I suspect it's gonna be awful tough if we're able to get there.
Now that we're all in a really good mood,
Love the way these meetings always
Yeah.
start so down.
I do think it's really easy this time of year to get in this mindset. What we need to do is carry it on throughout the year, through 2025, because 2026 might be tough. And you'll see in a lot of these budgets that there's really not a lot of Post-it notes and stamps that we can take away. So approving ongoing recurring expenses without having additional ongoing revenue to support them is something we really want you to consider.
The increases on these budgets, a good portion of it comes from employees, from their salaries, from insurance, those kinds of things. The folks have done a good job of, trying to keep the wage in a decent, level, but it does impact salaries and employees. It's gonna be tough looking at budgets and figuring out where we can cut and get as close to that structurally balanced budget as we can.
And then we've got to focus on building reserves back up in a number of our funds in the following years, because the work that we've done in these big projects in the last couple of years have really depleted our reserves in a number of them. Are we ready to get started, Mayor, on the revenue in the general fund? So
Just a question if I can.
Sure.
So as we're going through this, we have to keep in mindset the three majors that Bob mentioned. That's the sidewalk, the lights, and the loader. Also, we have to keep in mind that we could lose $700,000 possible income from taxes should that initiative be passed to all sales tax, consumable sales tax. So if we work this out, are we looking at adding all of that and the 720,000 as to, that's the total we have to stay below?
I think we should focus on getting the 2025 budget as close to a structurally balanced budget as possible. I would be surprised that we get there. Last year, we were 410, 420, I think.
I think in the general fund it was 300 and something at the end, 310 or 320. But we appropriated it throughout 2024, we've used cash applied to appropriate in addition to what you approved.
And the previous years, that's kind of the figure we were at. We've been taking around $300,000, $400,000 out of savings to balance our budget.
So should that initiative pass, this flight's going to
Mhm.
are we gonna have to come back
No.
and do budget
We don't anticipate, the reason I'm not projecting anything in this budget is because we don't anticipate any impacts until at least 2026.
It won't be voted on something, right?
No, to be voted on November of this
Oh,
year,
this
but
year.
laws pass in July in our state, and there's some confusion between those in administration and those trying to pass this that have to be worked out, and they'll most likely be worked out in sessions, so.
I mentioned because if it does pass, then at some point, we're gonna be looking at that much less revenue coming into the general fund from sales taxes. And that will factor into future budget. So we need to keep that savings as high as we
2026.
can.
That's my very first budget note, so that's a good introduction to this. My estimate, we got an email from the Municipal League yesterday, and they did the same thing I had done and looked at the Department of Revenue Service Industry classification for the whole year to see potentially what our loss could be, and they came up with like 425,000. Does that sound about right, Bob? 420 something thousand? So mine might be a little high because I took wholesale, retail, industrial, anything, because we don't know what human consumables is gonna be defined like. So I probably grabbed some things into my estimate that may or may not be included.
Some stuff you eat.
Yeah, but if it's prepared, so like restaurants, then that would still be just, so it's stuff you buy at the grocery store. So mine might be a little high, but it's still significant. 424,000 is significant to our general fund budget and our additional sales tax fund budget.
Misty, I should know the answer to this question, but I don't, being new. Where does our monies for savings come from?
Well, it just like your savings does. It builds up throughout the years of stuff that you didn't have budgeted for, that you receive, like if we exceed revenue, that goes into our cash. Unassigned cash balance is what it's called in our governmental funds, and then unrestricted net position is what we call it in our enterprise funds. So
money
same way
is-
as you build up your savings is how we do it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question. All right, so let's start in the 101 fund, general property taxes current year. I hope by now, for all of you except for Gary, you know I got a pretty good system for estimating these things.
You want this, or you want it
Yep.
electronic?
Either one, it's up to you, they should go in the same, the thing about these is that the printed ones is that they show you year to date. This is from our accounting software, it's not easy to change, and you can't add notes. So that's why we do both. This is kind of more for Gary, you guys know that, but this one will show you where each one of these revenue codes is year to date. But the Excel will show you notes that'll include how we calculated it and got to those numbers. So general property taxes current year, our historic collection rate runs 95 to 98% of our total levy. Our levy amount is, our increase is restricted. It can be our prior year levy plus CPI, which was 3% for 2025, and a growth percentage. And those two increases are the only increases we can take. I think we were about 60,000. I'm gonna pull up my spreadsheet. We don't get centrally assessed utilities from the county until September. So our maximum increase between those two is $52,350. So people, you hear, oh, my property taxes doubled. Well, we're not getting double the amount that we did. So I came up with a figure using our prior year levy. The CPI and the growth was 0.82%. Again, that might change a little bit when they get centrally assessed utilities in, but typically doesn't change very much. And so $1,422,778 is the total calculated, with our mill levy going up from 4.24% to 4.29, so 0.04% was the maximum that we could increase our request. And then I used 97% of that total, so I have $1,380.95 projected. The next one's a little harder to anticipate, general property taxes all prior years. So those are all the people that didn't pay before, and we just hope they'll pay. And so I have that estimated at 23,000. Year to date, we're at 17, and we still, we collect a month in arrears because the county sends it to us, so I may be able to bump that up a little bit if you wanted me to, but I'm comfortable with 23. My goal always with revenue is to underestimate. I expect us to hit revenue 100% of the time, every year. I want to be modest in revenue projections, and then the opposite with expenditures. I don't want to budget for every unknown, but I want to give department heads enough that they have a cushion left at the end of the year, that they're not spending every dime. So everybody okay with that 23,000, or is there any input? Hearing none. I'll move on to the general sales and use tax. This is where we'll see the biggest hit if IM 28 passes. We see this general sales and use tax collection in both our 101 fund and our 212 fund. So 2/3 of that tax goes to our general fund and 1/3 goes to the additional sales tax fund. And I have $1,520,000 projected.
Hey, Missy, that was 101, and what was the other account?
212.
212.
I'm just gonna kind of go unless anybody, if you want to stop me, please interrupt. Penalties, interest, delinquent taxes, I have 7,000. Liquor and beer licenses, 17,000. Animal licenses, 1,500. City licenses, 18,000. The big increase you saw, and that was related to our medical cannabis license, and we do have one more still available, and those are $5,000 each a year, so.
So do you project that would go up if?
If another one takes it, but I can't, I don't want to budget for what I hope happens. If it hasn't happened yet, I'm not putting it in the budget.
Okay.
So, yeah, that'd be great if somebody else got the other license and gave us 5,000.
I know the county really upped the price of their licenses.
I think we need to look at
I
some
think we
fees,
should look
Yeah,
at that
that's,
as well.
that's what I was
not
thinking.
just that one.
I know, 'cause like the liquor license is 25,000, isn't it?
No, ours is, our minimum with the last one that we had to offer was 50 or 55.
55,
That
so,
one, yeah.
and 5,000 for marijuana,
The idea was that it's medical,
right?
and that's kind of why we picked that. But we can definitely talk about that, but I'm still not gonna project revenue for something you haven't passed yet. So we have from now until December to go through our revenue in all departments and funds and identify areas where we might need to make some changes to some of those fees. And then that might help us in 2026 should we see the effects of a past IM 28.
Misty, because the medical cannabis dispensaries need to be registered with the state, can the state give us a list of all the communities that have them and the amount that the cities are charging for those, so we can take a look at it and see where we're at? As you said, talking with Deborah, we kept this one low because it's medical cannabis, it's not recreational. And we had talked about if medical or recreational ever happens,
That would be
it's gonna hurt
Right.
for that one. But for this one, starting out low, but it would be interesting to see where other communities are at as far as the rates they're charging for them and see if we're kind of there or.
I know when we passed it for class 2 municipalities, 5,000 was what almost everyone was doing, but people have changed it since.
Yeah, I was wondering if any municipalities had raised that.
Like I said,
Wasn't that
the
done on
county
state
did,
recommendation?
they raised theirs a lot.
Yeah, if I can't get it from the state, I can work on it with my listserv, so I'll make myself a note and
All right.
try to figure out what other communities are getting for
Do
theirs.
we
Thank you.
receive taxes from the sales of medical marijuana? Do we have to?
No.
I just don't understand that.
Because it's
Medicine.
medicine.
Uh, I still don't understand that.
Well, the feds did they define it as medicine? Because it's illegal for them.
But
They still
that's how
have.
they define it, illegal.
Because they're illegal, so they're not going to define it as medicine, so who's defining it as medicine?
The state. Building permits, 30,000. Trenching permits, 100. If we charged these fees when we did these things, those might be a little higher. We have some work to do in collection, application and collection of appropriate fees. That would be helpful if we could do that more consistently. Other licenses, including use permits, variance requests, those types of things, we have 200. Again, we want to be modest in our revenue projections and hope to exceed them. It wouldn't be a big deal to add a couple $100 to these, but it wouldn't make a big difference either. We collect bank franchise tax fees at 5,300 estimated.
Who sets that rate?
It is set by the state, it's collected by the county, and it's remitted in our county remittance.
If you're gonna raise anybody's regional reserve.
You know, we do, just like the sales tax, we don't have any impact on that. Same with the prorate license fees, the liquor tax reversion, the motor vehicle licenses. These are all state shared revenues, we just collect them. I'm happy to get it, but we don't have any control over it. The county road tax, that stays the same every year. We thought it was 21 year, because we didn't get it, but they just forgot to give it to us. So when I asked for it, they were like, oh, we forgot that. That was startling. So I had to remind them. We get, pilot stands for payment in lieu of taxes. And both the Brookside and the Evans pay those PILT dollars. They're determined after their audits are done. If you remember when we were, when they were component units with us, their audits are not timely. So often when I get the revenue for the PILT money, it's a receivable. I have to book it as a receivable at the end of the year. And so we're not collecting in the current year. So 25 looks a little low to what we've collected in years past, but there's no guarantee we're gonna get any in a year. Hopefully, eventually we get it all, but I just got 2021's PILT money from the Evans this year. So I had that booked as receivable all these years, and you don't get to see that as revenue in this year because it went back to a revenue that they owed it to you at the end of 2021, so. That one looks a little low, but I'm not comfortable raising it any higher because there's no guarantee when we get it collected. Library allotment from the county, we have $25,000. We have a small amount, $20 in sale of maps and publications. That's really just copy fees. We don't really sell maps or publications, so if somebody wants us to make copies for them, we charge them fees for that. Reimbursements, $2,000. Golden West Capital credits, they changed the way they paid those out. They're once a year in September, and now they apply, so if that capital credit is for an account we still have open and it's under a certain dollar amount, they'll apply it to our telephone bill as a credit. So we're still getting it, we just don't get it as revenue, if you notice that that's gone down a little bit. Of course, donations, we never budget for that, but we'll take anybody wants to give. Our special police services and SRO, this contract expires in 2025, and I believe we have some renegotiating to do, and hopefully we'll change that number a little bit just because of the expenses related to the position. But for now, for 2025, I want to project what we've collected before. And so once we do renegotiate that contract, and if there's any changes, then in 2026, we'll adopt those changes in our revenue projections.
Are we gonna dig it down a little bit? Down the
Not
road?
here.
Maybe down the road.
Yep, it should be on a public safety agenda coming soon.
Oh, yeah, I'm
It's
just
not
curious
ready.
to understand what costs have gone up.
Yeah,
He's just watching kids over there at school.
yeah, just his payroll expenses alone are more than that.
When we began having the discussions with the school about doing this, looking at the percent of the time they would be over there and engage it.
And the wage.
The 60/40.
Is he over there 60%?
He's over there 75%.
Is over there,
During the school year,
during
75%.
the school year. So we need to look at that.
And we've raised their top scales 2 times since we negotiated that agreement, and all the other payroll costs have increased, so. But we'll talk more about that outside of this meeting. Sometimes we take some steel to be recycled and get some money for it, but I didn't budget anything for 2025 for that. They do it when the steel prices are good and they have a good pile and they have the ability to get it there, so. Park electricity, I have 900, park application fees, 3,000. Where are we at year-to-date on collection of those? I think that was one I thought was maybe a little low, but anybody following along on that one? Oh, no, we're only at 1,500, so that is I don't wanna change that estimate, that's good. Rec and program fees, we have 13,000. That's the same as this year, but Gabby, she did mention that she, with her expanded program offerings she'd like to have in 2025, she does plan to raise some of those rates, but I'm still budgeting for the same amount that we budgeted for '24. Rec program late fees, I didn't put anything in there, that was new in 2019. Kathy wanted us to implement that, she was having trouble with collection, but now Gabby does complete online registrations, and there are no late fees, because you can't register unless you pay. Mueller Center Vending Commission, $75. We have a contract where we get 10% of the sales that the service provider has, and we get a semi-annual payment for that. I have $30 for Airport Vending Commission. Nothing for airport concessions, as that service, I was told, is now done by Southern Hills Aviation. They sell the oil and windshield washer fluid, and we just have a few on hand, but we don't keep an inventory to sell anymore. Airport fuel sales, I'm gonna have that one highlighted because I feel like it might be a little high. I know we exceeded that in 2023, but I'm not sure that 80 is,
Exceeded in 22 also.
yeah, but if you look where we're at year to date, we're only at 35. So, but I also have highlighted a little bit lower the airport T-hanger rentals, and between, I think I underestimated on that one hopefully. So between the two, I think we're fine, if we're okay to leave it, but I wanted to mention that to you. Because the last thing I want to do is overestimate revenue. So under airport fuel, if nobody has any objections, I'm going to leave that at 80 with the explanation that hopefully.
That's the difference between our price and our profit.
That is our, yep,
That's our-
yep, that's after the cost of goods sold have been expensed. I have Mueller Center, Missoula Children's Theater program fees of 2,000 in here, but we got late notice from Chris, and we'll get to that when we get to his budget, but it's not gonna work for 2025. The dates they had available do not work for us here. So I'm gonna have to take this $2,000 projected revenue out because we're not gonna have. But that's also gonna take $5,000 out of the Mueller Center's projected budget. So,
I think Chris had the same conversation, hopefully you and he and I had, right?
yeah, if that's the same as you heard, if the dates didn't work, so they're gonna be taking it out.
Well, Gabby was wanting to,
She's gonna do a theater.
do a drama thing instead, and I told him it'd be a great idea.
But not the MCT
No.
theater, just
Right.
kinda something, yeah. So I'm taking that one out. We have the cemetery sale of lots, 2,400 estimated. And then we have grave digging charges, which might be low because year to date, we've charged a lot of those, but the bottom line is we don't wanna do that. So as soon as we can find a qualified, certified, permitted, licensed grave digger who does a decent job, we don't want to do this anymore. So 1,500, or I could take it out, seems like a fair estimate with the hopes that they don't have to do that as much as they've been doing it this year.
I thought we had one.
Still looking, huh?
They are.
Okay.
We did, didn't work out.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, they've been talking with someone else?
Yeah.
Might be,
Yeah.
work out.
So I could take that out completely, or I could leave it in there, or I could lower it, whatever. If there's no input, I'm just gonna leave it at 1,500.
I'd leave it at that amount,
That's what I'll leave it for now.
Okay.
because we may have to do some cremation, for a little while.
And we have blank, and then we're at animal control fines. I may change this number if we have some success with these attorneys trying to implement some of these fines, but 200 is what I've estimated. Hopefully nobody. cost to pay those kind of things. But hopefully we get to a point where we do charge them to the people that have it coming, and collect that revenue. Library fines, 3,000. My notes just remind you that those were waived for a large part of 2020 due to COVID. Interest earned, man, it's been great lately. So interest earnings have been great. I know if you look at 2023, you think, I should project higher, but we don't know. But as the Fed's gonna drop rates 2 more times this year, or 2 times this year, they're gonna wait till next year. So I have an estimate of 35,000, which seems, looking at our year-to-date, to be kind of low, but I'm comfortable with it if you are. Because we have no control over that. Any comments?
Does the municipality have to pay taxes on that stuff like a private person?
No.
So that's just straight up revenue, you don't have to do any work? Such
Correct,
things.
we don't pay taxes. But there are years when we didn't make any interest and we were paying bank fees similar to these, because we have an analyzed account, so we get earnings credits. And because our analysis is good and our balance is good, we get interest right now. But if the percentage that we get goes down and our fees are there, right now, the fees are offset by the earnings credit and the interest payments, that could go away.
So these banks are holding all that money, and yet they're only paying that small franchise tax.
Yeah, the franchise tax isn't related to the amount of money that the banks hold, so. Mueller Center building rent, 22,000. And please stop me, if you see something year-to-date or in here that you have questions of, let's just talk through it. Airport hangar rentals, 40,000. I was asked to create a new revenue code for T-hangar rentals. I skipped over lease and hay revenue. So the FILA and the ROMI lease are coming due, and those are on the Airport Advisory Committee things to talk about, but I still have them estimated into my revenue. But if that's okay, I'll leave them there.
Well, we may want to drop that because we may be in what we're renting right across from the feedlot, maybe drawing geese in, which is what's the right term?
Attractive nuisance.
It's an attractive nuisance, and they're causing geese to be on the runway, which is, when they're feeding over there, it draws.
We could be in violation of some federal guidelines.
So I'm not sure what we're getting on that part, so.
5, that's probably the largest,
So
5,000.
you might want to drop that just because we may not be able to redo that one.
I think that was what I heard, what I understand, that was ag land, and the feds said you can't be raising crops on it because.
They
it's
saw
attractive
this
nuisance.
lease though, we've had.
But
this
now
lease
they're dry lot
5
feeding
years.
over there.
That's what they've done all 5 years. This is our 5th year of it. So I can take it off if y'all agree. Otherwise, I do like to budget for how it is now because we can't tell what the future is gonna bring. But if you wanna drop it by 5,000, we can. We're going the wrong direction in the general fund. And we also have the hay revenue. So I think we're at 11 or 12 year to date.
I'm just saying that I know it's gonna be talked about it, and it's been expressed as a concern, so.
It just recently came to our attention.
that-
I'm
What was
pretty sure
happening?
we talked about the attractive nuisance stuff 5 years ago when we were putting both of these in place, because we had grazing there. Was that part of the area that Gary grazed before or no?
I'm not sure it was, because he fenced it off, put the electric fence, and then it's just within the last year or so that the current airport manager has noticed the waterfowl showing up when they're doing the
Dry lot feeding.
dry lot feeding, so.
So anybody else have any input? Are we dropping this number?
I defer to your recommendation, guys.
My only concern is we may be counting on $5,000 of revenue that may not realistically be there.
Can he be restricted on the use of that because it's in line with the airport?
They're not gonna use it if they can't use it for the reason they need
Yeah,
to.
Yeah, but you can't grow grass there. No, I mean, you could graze maybe 5 head of cattle there if you could grow anything, so it would be pretty much useless to.
It's something that we really need to take a hard look at. We don't want to be creating a liability situation for the city. So,
Recognizing we're going in the wrong direction if we remove the feedlot. But I'm getting the sense that that really kind of is the recommendation or the feeling that we shouldn't be doing what we're doing. And that's gonna mean the feedlot isn't gonna walk the land. Is,
Kind of
do
what I
you feel
think
like
we're-
that's what's gonna come out of board advisory?
When you, Gary, when you say the city could be in trouble, at what expense could we be in trouble?
well, if it's a federal violation to have an attractive nuisance there, apparently, and I don't have all the historical background, but apparently, the Fed said that, you couldn't grow row crops out there because of attracting the geese that close to the airport. So, we were growing crops out there one time or another, that is no longer happening. Well, now they started dry lot feeding out there, and of course, that attracts the geese, and they're right there by the runway. Birds flying, airplanes flying, potential for them to climb. And that's why the FAA apparently, and I haven't read all that depth, so I really don't know very sure.
Yeah, maybe.
So some of this is flows into my
Fine,
mind.
what cost?
And so if we're aware of that and we continue to allow it to happen,
Let-
potentially,
Can
we're
we-
creating issues for ourselves.
Can we let them weigh in instead of saying that they have a problem with it? You were at the airport meeting too, with the FAA folks, and they know we have leases. And I haven't heard from them, so can we, if we're gonna say that we have to do it because they don't want us to do it and we could be liable, can we get that from them?
Well, still, if we're aware of it, I mean, we need to be responsible.
Yeah, I think there's a,
We can't be responsible for every nuisance.
No, but based on what he's
there's
saying.
2 issues, there's a regulatory issue and there's a practical issue.
Or,
So,
I suspect that FAA is gonna tell us we need to stop the behavior. There isn't gonna be any fine or anything because it's there. They're gonna say, okay, you need to do this. And if we were to ignore it after being told that, then we're at risk of doing something.
It's no different if you got a faulty
Shooting
slide,
range.
Sam's plunge, and you're aware of it, and you don't do something to fix it, someone falls, hurts themselves, we've got problems, because we're aware of it.
that's my point right there. I mean, if we're talking about it,
Yeah. So, I think it needs to be further discussed at the committee level, go from there. Do you agree with that, Bill?
yeah, we definitely need to talk about it with the committee. So I guess the only question here is what we want to do with the amount.
It's just like, there were 2 at once, I had to.
she said keep it, we
Is
bills.
that how you feel about the amount?
Keep it in. I personally don't have a problem with the geese, but I just don't want us to get ourselves in open the city up to some.
Nobody wants that, but we could spend hours talking about how we could be liable for what somebody might do or have happened. I'm sorry, I tried to kill the flies for you and I knocked the paper down. I'll get it at the end. Was that for the flies too? I took-
No, that's complete.
Am I changing this or am I leaving it at 15?
So you want to keep it and then discuss it later on, what you're saying, Bill?
Well, I think if we're gonna make an adjustment, we have to do it now, so.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Down to 10?
Discussing it later, the budget's already been.
Yeah,
approved.
I'd drop it to 10, and if we don't have to do anything, then we're better off.
Airport T hangar rentals, I said I was probably underestimating that. Hopefully I am, but I might have overestimated airport fuel sales a little, so 3,500 is what I have there. Dropping down, we have inter-loan items for the library, interlibrary loan items, $100, $150 for damaged lost fees, 4,000 for copies, 3,000 for library cards. In 2020, the price doubled for those cards. It's a sensitive topic, but it might be something as we look through fees to talk about potentially increasing. The DARE program donations, this program has been fully funded by donations since it started, but the PD didn't budget for DARE in 2025, so I'm not adding any donations, but just so you're aware, if they do determine they want to go through with the DARE program and they have expenses, there is restricted equity where we could apply cash from those DARE donations to support the program next year. So we're certainly not saying we shouldn't do it or we don't want to do it. I'm just not putting, since we didn't put any expense in there, not putting any revenue to offset that. Then we have our liquor operating revenues. And if somebody wants to follow along and see where we're at year to date on those projected ones as I'm going through these, we do collect, again, sometimes 1 or 2 months behind because they have to be invoiced and then we have to get their invoices to add our percentage and then invoice them. So if there's any that seem low, let's talk about those because I'd like to make up the difference we've increased from the other revenue items. So I have 10,000 for the American Legion. I have 500 for the space. I have 4,500 for Jalapenos Grill. And remember, we reuse some of these revenue numbers. So for these newer places, if you see revenue numbers in the historical context, they were something else at that time. We used Woolies for jalapenos. That's a good example of doing that.
Year to date, jalapenos is 31, almost 31.50.
Yeah, they're doing well. Would you like me to increase that one?
You could probably bump that one to $6,000.
Okay, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah.
They're hopefully a stable business. They seem to be doing very well in our town, so I'm changing that 4,500 to 6,000. Frankie's Place was sold, sale fell through, maybe sold again. I don't have anything in there. She can only not use that license for 2 full years before it reverts back to the city. I think that she has till the middle of 2025 to do something with it, or then we have another license available if she doesn't. It does make her business more valuable as a seller if she can transfer that, so we don't want to take it from her. But something's going to have to work out soon or we won't have choice. Winter Circle, I have 10,000. Springs Coffee Kiosk, 300. Yes Way, 25,000. Nothing for the Springs Restaurant. Misty River Tavern, which is doing business as a smokehouse, at 2,000. Red Rock River Resort, nothing. Morning Sunshine, nothing.
Misty, I'm embarrassed to ask, but
That's okay.
these figures represent income from what?
It's we add a percentage to liquors. So everybody that has a liquor license, whatever they purchase, their wholesale purchases, we add a 10% to that, and you pay that liquor tax to the city.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Big Bats, year to date, they're low, but we all know what they're going through, and I expect them to bounce back when they're open, so 12,000 is what I have projected. I would have projected higher. If they're gonna be open all year next year, we might be able to add a little bit there. But year to date, they haven't collected much because they're operating out of a tiny little trailer. So should I leave it at 12 or? Previous years have been 14, 15,
They're gonna boom.
Huh?
I think they're gonna boom.
Yeah, once they open, I imagine they'll do as good. So is everybody okay if I change that to 15?
Sure.
Sure.
So Big Bass, yeah, we're adding 3 to that one. Are we getting closer to making up what we've taken away? Dakota Mart Gas, I have 2,600. 48,000 for Lynn's. 700 for Southern Hills Mercantile. 8,500 for the Corner Pantry. 200 for Riverfront. 30 for Pizza Hut. 50,000 for Sunny's. Nothing for the Dragonfly.
You think we could bump Sunny's up to 55?
Where are they at year to date?
They're at 27.
But I'm wondering if Big Bat's open, if that's gonna take away from Sunny's.
Maybe 52.5?
I'll take what I get.
Are we comfortable with that? 60 was 2023.
51 and 60.
Okay.
So 52.5? Because I think you're right, Bill, it may, the opening of Big Bass may have an impact on there, so.
Oh, we can do that.
But I am changing that one to 52.5. HSP Lock Properties, that's the one right next to City Hall, 1,500. Big Time Pizza, 100, wasn't sure if I should put anything in there, I think that place has been for sale, but I did put 100 in there. Dollar General, 8,000. Family Dollar, 6,000, that's one of their stores. The cable TV, so that's all our liquor percentages. The cable TV franchise fee is 20,000. Recovery of prior year expenditures, those are our workers' comp audit refunds at 2,000. And then our operating transfers in, 260,000. So my new total for the general fund is 3,938,835. That's wonderful, because that's exactly where we were.
Can you say that again?
It's the same amount that's on there.
Oh,
So we made up everything we took away. And hopefully we hit the target pretty good on those. Next, I'm gonna go to the 211 fund, and I'm gonna refer to this guide to the City of Hot Springs budget by fund, just for the descriptions of each of these. So we finished with the general fund. That fund's all non-enterprise activity. It's funded primarily by property taxes and 2/3 of the 2% municipal sales and use tax, city fees and licenses. There are 26 departments in the general fund when it comes to expenses. The 211 fund, the one where I'm now, that's called the Liquor, Lodging, and Dining Sales Tax Fund. These tax dollars have also been referred to historically as the bed, board, and booze tax, and also the third penny, and then LLD, but actually on my tax remittance, it's called the Municipal Gross Receipts Tax. So although it has 4 different names, it's all the same. And there's a state statute and a city ordinance that dictate the use of these dollars. The revenues received from an additional 1% sales tax on alcoholic beverages, eating establishments, lodging accommodations, ticket sales or admissions to places of amusement, athletic and cultural events. This fund currently pays 80% directly to the Hot Springs Chamber of Commerce, and the additional 20% is used to help cover the costs associated with utilities and building repairs at the Mueller Civic Center and the depot. I have 193,000 projected for revenue in this fund. That one was easy. Nobody has any objections. I do use a spreadsheet, I've shared it before, to project using historic data, these numbers, so it's not a pie in the sky number, actually using.
So if we have a great year of people coming to see the sidewalk and drinking beer, that fund will grow.
Hopefully, in the last several years, as our other taxes have grown, this one struggled to hit our targets. So it seems to me like as your sales tax, your general sales and use tax would grow, that this one would too, but we haven't seen the same percentage of growth between the two.
Do we have the Southernmost Mercantile in there?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
See if we missed that.
So now I'm on the 212 fund. That's the additional sales tax fund. It's funded primarily by 1/3 of the 2% municipal sales and use tax. City Ordinance 1008 dictates the fund is to be used for debt service, street improvement, maintenance equipment, building construction, building upkeep and repair, and any other expenditure deemed necessary and approved by the council. The large revenue in this fund comes from that 1/3, and I have 760,000 projected there. Obviously, we don't budget for grants. We supplementally or automatically appropriate budgets when we get grant money. And then we also are still collecting on the Boulder Falls assessments. We have 2 debts that we carry for that project. And the revenue, we're done with the back 9 in 2024, collecting on the back 9. So Boulder Falls, I have 71,000 in principal still to be collected by the county, and 7,900 in interest and penalties. Anyone can come in at any time and pay that off. So you see principal collected by municipality, the one right under those 2 historically getting money in it. So those are people that either paid their assessment off early or sold their house and the buyer paid the assessment. So as I'm estimating these amounts, it's based on what we expect to certify over to the county. If those fall short because we didn't certify it over, we typically have an equal increase in the principal paid directly to the municipality. We just lose out on the interest and penalties. So with those 3 revenue sources, I have $838,900 estimated for revenue in our additional sales tax fund.
Misty, you're showing back 9 is being paid off. When does Boulder Falls?
It was quite a bit later. I think we have 4 or 5 more years. Yep, and back 9's done this year. 4? Yeah, you have, we should ask you.
We
Four.
have 3.
4 after this year, right?
Yeah,
So
we
25,
have
26,
4 more
27,
payments.
28.
What's the back 9 versus Boulder Falls?
The road paving projects, so with the whole thing with that development, the back 9 just did their roads. We assessed them, they started paying much earlier. The Boulder Falls portion, we had a court case and we settled.
Yes, we moved there right as after the court case, so.
Our next fund is the 213, that's our bid fund or Business Improvement District Fund. It was established in July 2011 to provide funding for advertising, marketing, promoting, and public improvements in the city of Hot Springs. All hotel, motel, overnight lodging businesses in Hot Springs are required to collect and remit an occupancy tax of $2 from their overnight or short-term, less than 28-day guests. With the help of the Hot Springs Chamber of Commerce, the city appointed advisory board members, and they make recommendations for the use of the funds. BID participates with the South Dakota Department of Tourism, utilizing matching grant funding to develop cooperative marketing strategies using data analytics and consumer insights with the goal to drive increased tourism to the area. It is a honor system. I don't have time for the staff to go out and audit these businesses. When it started in 2016, we were collecting almost 100,000. We've seen it dip down and come up a little bit. I have 85,000 projected for 2025.
Are we enforcing the Airbnb?
We have sent letters to everyone we've been able to find on those websites, the Airbnb and the VRBO, and there's no enforcement. That's what I'm saying. This is an honor system. We gave them the information. They know what they're supposed to do.
So is there a licensure that's required to open such a business?
And not through the city, they just have to participate in collecting the tax. There's some licensing from the state.
Oh, okay.
They have to have a sales tax license.
Lodging license.
Even like the home ones. The next fund is our 501 Capital Improvement Fund. This was established in November 2013 by Ordinance 1138. This fund accounts for financial resources to be used for special projects throughout the community. Currently, funds designated for community improvements include Light Up Our Town, baseball T-ball improvements, the Macaulay's Vision Fund, and the Suspended Sidewalk Project. So each of these revenue sources has an expenditure code in the expenses of the 501 fund, and then they each have restricted equity accounts, so they can only be used for the purposes which they were donated for. We don't get any revenue in this fund, that's why we're discussing and struggling and what to do with the added expenses related to the suspended sidewalk. Because there's no revenue that comes in that's not donations, there's $0 reported for 2025 projected revenue. I would add no proceeds to this if we end up taking some of those dollars, and that would be considered a revenue source. But we'll talk more about that before the end of the year, and I'm not recommending we do that anymore.
What are no proceeds?
Like the money that we get from the state if you drew on that note.
Oh, the,
Yeah. All right, the 602 fund. This is the start of our enterprise or proprietary funds. These are looked at differently than our governmental funds, which primarily do not, they're not operated for profit. You know, we provide services as a service-driven business. But our enterprise or proprietary funds, they're accounted for and expected to operate and have a focus on profit, much like businesses. So the water fund, the 602 fund, is funded primarily by user charges. It accounts for the construction, capital improvements, and operations of the city waterworks systems and related facilities. The fund has long-term debts issued. We talked a little bit about our debt service requirements. For revenue, our return check late fees, we have $2,200 projected. Miscellaneous revenue, which is from our royalties that we get from that service line insurance that we marketed with. They are paying us royalties. I have $600 estimated for that. Penalties, I have $9,500 estimated. That was changed from a percent to a flat amount in 2019 and waived for a portion of 2022 due to COVID. We do have 2 active assessments in the water fund. We have the 26th Street Water Distribution Improvement and the Martin Street Water Assessments. In total, I'm anticipating principal collected by the county $10,200 for those 2. And then interest and penalty $3,300. Recovery of prior year expenditures, you'll remember seeing that in the general fund. Those are our SDML work comp payroll audits. We get refunds after they give us credits for the payroll that we pay that's over and above the one time their salary. So any overtime, any holiday pay, any night differential pay, any sick vacation, they give us credits at the end of the year for those hours because we pay workers' comp payments based on salaries, and if they're not working, then they don't charge us. The big one in the water fund is the metered and flat rate water. I have $930,000. That might be a bit of a small estimate. We know that we're raising our water rates by 2.5%, but as we've done in the past, we try to use historical data and not projected. So if anybody had any concerns about that amount or wanted to raise it, I'd consider it. Remember, we're a month behind in our billing when you look at where we're at year to date, but I do think $930,000 is a pretty good estimate. Moving on, bulk water sales, that's construction water, $7,500 is our estimate. The water fill station, $35,000. Our tap fees, I have at $2,000. That is 2 tap fees. It should be much higher, yet we consistently fail to charge the fee. We talk about this every year. We've worked on processes to include it in building permits, to assign who's responsible for ensuring that it gets collected, and we're still kind of falling apart on that. So I'd really like to see that much higher. I'd like to see us get better at charging that fee. Reconnect call-out fees, $1,750. Our fire sprinkler system, $1,700. And then our lease proceeds of $9,000. That was new in 2023. We actually had it for 15 years before that, but council 15 years ago just took a lump sum payment and then promptly distributed it to different organizations throughout town as soon as they got it for 15 years. So after that first 15 years, then they start paying us a monthly amount, and so I have $9,000 budgeted for that. a total revenue in the water fund of $1,015,500. Wastewater fund is our other utility enterprise fund. Also funded primarily by user charges, accounts for the construction, capital improvements, and operations of the city's sanitary sewer system and related facilities. It also has long-term debt issued. I have $350 in Golden West capital credits projected. I have $2,500 in interest earned. I have $16,000 for the Martin Street Sewer Assessment Principal.
1,600 or
Did I say 1,000?
Yes.
Thank you, 1,600.
That was a good test.
I'm glad you guys are paying attention.
Thank you for paying attention.
Still awake.
700 for
There will be
interest
a
in
test.
penalty collection, and the only one left on, that's the Martin Street assessment only. I have 250 for recovery of prior year expenditures, and that's for the workers' comp payroll audit refunds. And then the big revenue is the sewer charges. I have 880,000 projected in sewer charges. I have 6,500 in sewer user fee, and that is primarily our commercial company dumping charges. Tap fees, I have the same note. I have 2,000 in here, but should be much higher. We need to consistently charge those fees as they're listed in our ordinance. Other sewer revenue, I have 1,100. That comes from the RV dump station donation and the royalties from that service line. There's no changes. I have 895,000 projected for wastewater revenue. The next fund is our solid waste fund. I don't know if y'all that were here a while ago remember I tried to get rid of this a few years ago with the auditors because we don't really operate this business any longer. We haven't had the open and functioning material recovery facility in a number of years since before I started. It got closed down, and so I thought, why can't we just absorb this into the general fund? But they didn't agree. They said it's already set up that way, and it is essentially a business. So although we carry no assets with this, we still operate it like a enterprise fund. We give 100% of the revenue that we collect in collection fees directly to the provider, who has a 5-year contract that increases 3.5% every year for our users. I have miscellaneous revenue of $200. That's a sales tax allowance. So when we pay or remit our sales taxes on time, they give us a credit. Collection fees, 250,000 is my estimate. And then the city fee, it's $2.65, and it's charged to each user, and that 40,800 that I have projected is what the city uses to pay for our 2 community cleanup. We pay to dump the trash, pay to dump our city trash in Edgemont, to replace our refuse totes, not just the ones the commercial garbage provider uses, but the ones along our streets and in our parks. So that is what we use to pay those things. So total revenue projected for the solid waste fund is $291,000. And I'm going to move on to the golf course. That's our 620 fund. It was established in 2014 as an enterprise fund, and is funded primarily by user charges and supported when needed with a subsidy from the 212 fund, which is a governmental fund. It accounts for the operation and capital improvements of the Southern Hills Golf Course, including both the pro shop and golf course maintenance activities. They share the same revenue, so when we get to expenses, you'll see the golf course has 2 departments, but this is the revenue that both those departments operate off of. I have several highlights on here. The first 3 are because the manager requested I increase the amounts, and I wasn't terribly uncomfortable with doing it, but I wanted to make you aware that we did those. Golden West capital credits, I have 750. Green fees, I have 170,000. Season passes, I had 95, she had 100,000. If you look back historically, we only hit that in 2023. But I'd still like to have 95,000, but as I mentioned earlier tonight, they have a deficit, so if you're comfortable with 100,000, I'll leave it. Punch, comments? Punch cards at 95?
Yeah,
Okay,
Pause for a minute.
yep.
When it comes to season passes, at this point, we should have a good idea of what those are.
Well, you're 112 this year to date. That's why I'm not super uncomfortable with raising it to 100, but there's no guarantee as the prices continue to go up that you get 100% of the people that continue. So, I mean, I think you're okay with 100, but
All right.
I had it at 95 because I like to be modest in revenue projections. I don't want to just barely make it. So you okay with 100? Okay. Punch cards, 9,500. Cart trail fees, 4,500. Cart storage, 26,000. Tournaments, 15,000. I had 6. What we found in the past, we've never hit 15. But what we found in the past, and I think we're doing a little differently this time, is getting the revenue coded in the right category. So we don't have any control over that. They do that. And Jill has made a focus on making sure that the revenue that she's collecting related to the tournaments is in this category and line item. So if you look historically, it never hit that, but if you look year to date, it's much higher than it has been historically. If that continues, 15's fine with me. If it goes back to green fees, that one's gonna be over and this one's gonna be under, so hopefully we'll be okay anyway.
I think we're a little under on the punch cards, if we could pop back a couple
Sure.
steps. 23 was 12, and year-to-date is 16 and a half.
Sure.
Could-
Before that 12 though, it's always around 5, with the lowest being 3,600.
But we've done a lot of changes, and they're doing so, they're doing so many different newer, better things out there. I don't see why that should drop so bad,
Well, we didn't drop it, we still raised it 4,000 from this year, but, or as projected, but if you'd like to see an increase, if nobody disagrees, give me a number.
What does anyone else think? Think that's low?
What are you talking, punch card?
Punch cards.
You're at 16,655 year to date, and these are pretty timely numbers. You know, there's no arrears in these, it's,
And last year was 12,000. So 10, 5, 11.
10,000, are those weather dependent?
they only last during the season.
Right, but if you've got a nice early spring and a late fall, your punch cards really pay off for you, but if you've got a snow until June and you get an October snow,
But you buy punch cards all at once. You buy them, you might not use them all, but you bought them because you think it's gonna be a good year.
what would you propose?
I was thinking 10, 5.
Just an increase of 1,000, I'm comfortable with that.
10 bill.
I think 10-5 is good to stay in, if that's what you want.
10.5 is what I'm gonna change that to. Nobody objects?
No, sounds good.
It's fine, but
And-
it's still modest.
Yeah, that's good though. That's what we want. And thank you for jumping into, that's exactly what I need from you guys as we go through these. Okay, let's see. We were at the 15,000 for tournaments, and were we gonna leave that at 15? We were good with that?
We're currently at 18. One of the big changes that we have made, we recognize that season pass holders are not paying green fees when they would get into a tournament. So we were losing revenue there. They didn't want to allow the season pass, why would I pay a green fee? Because the course is being closed to play outside of the tournament itself. So it's a season pass when the tournament, or when the course isn't otherwise closed. Well, it's closed, so you need to pay a green fee, just like that may be what we're seeing here, some of the year-to-date increases there.
And she raised it from my projected amount to 15, so thank you for that explanation, that's helpful to know. I think there's a lot of areas throughout the city where we can identify those kind of things occurring and increase our revenue similar to what we did in this category. So are you okay with 15 after your description? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Room rent for events, 200. Alcoholic beverages, I have 60,000. Used to have beer and wine separate, they had us combine them. Non-alcoholic beverages, we broke out, I have 15,000. Food, I have 25,000. That was a $2,000 increase from what I projected, but I'm comfortable with it if you are. Clothing, I have 15,000. And this is clothing for resale, obviously. Equipment for resale, I have 25,000. Rentals, rainfalls, I have 10,000. Cart rental, I have 125,000. The Minimax handicap, I just point out that the new software includes it in the membership, so you'll see an expense for that. And we'll talk about that when we get to expense, but it is included in the membership fees now that we're collecting. Miscellaneous revenue, that's our monthly sales tax reporting allowance, 500. 225 for the recovery of prior year expenditures. And then when we compare projected revenue to projected expenses, they need a $240,532 subsidy. I have that highlighted because if we make any decreases to their expenditure budgets, we can decrease that subsidy, which will essentially help us in our deficit in the 212 fund. But for now, with the budgets that they requested, they need a $240,532 subsidy from the 212 fund. That part's budgeted. The big numbers you see, if you look back in this category, also include, because if you remember, we haven't had to use the subsidy for the golf course since COVID that we budget. The other amounts are the water and sewer transfers in, and that's unbudgeted because we don't know how much it's gonna be because we base it on actual usage.
Just for everybody's edification, this year, the projected subsidy was almost $158,000.
And I can actually take that down by $1,000 right now, because we increased revenue. So I'm gonna take that to 239,532. And then we'll take it down again when we get to expenses if we take any of those down.
You said part of this is that, the golf course?
No, the golf course is not carrying any long-term debt.
You have to pull from other resources just to make it run.
Well,
It's not
Bob,
self-sustaining.
right, well, it has been. Bob talked to you about structurally balanced budget, and in our state, there's a law. Can't pass a budget that doesn't balance. With our projected revenue and the projected expenses you haven't looked at yet, in order to balance that budget, we need $239,532. Now, we don't do that transfer, we don't give them that money till about November of 2025. We'll take a look at where they're at in revenue, where they're at in expenses, and what their cash balance is. Because we also can't let them end the year with a negative cash balance and address what type of subsidy they may need. So these are our educated guesses, and we hope at the end of the year, revenue's more than we thought, expenses are lower, and they don't need any. But we have to budget for it if they do. Does that answer your question? Yes? No?
Yeah, but it's been 2 or 3 years that we've had very healthy subsidies budgeted and haven't had to use any of it. They've done a good job of controlling expenses and
Maximizing revenue.
maximizing revenue.
Our enterprise funds are more often than not a little bit better at that than some of our intergovernmental funds, because they have to every year look at those in comparison. Because their focus is supposed to be on profit like a business. The next enterprise or proprietary fund is the 621 Evans Plunge Fund. This was established in 2013 when the city purchased the facility after a public vote on the matter. It's funded primarily by user charges and supported when needed with a subsidy from the 212 fund. It accounts for the operation and capital improvements of Evans Plunge, and it does have long-term debt issued.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please do.
So the pulling from the 212 from the golf course and everything, is that part of the ordinance or is that part of the voting, what was voted on, or what is that?
Well,
Does it
I
state
can find
law?
you the statute that
Oh, the
tells
statute.
you that you have to balance it, but where we pull it from is your decision. It's where our council has found the funds in the past to do it.
I'm not an accountant.
That's why we have these.
Well, sir.
So we're gonna start off with the Golden West Capital Credits 900. We have not raised the fees at the Plunge except for birthday parties since we purchased it. Adult admission, I have 270,000. Adult discount, 30,000. The difference between those two has varied year over year. I'm not sure if it's applying the discounts to those who qualify or not giving discounts to everybody that makes those differences, but usually if one's higher, the other one's lower, they usually work out between the two. Same with child admission, 125,000, child discount, 25,000. And this does reflect a change that we made. We didn't change the rate, but we changed who qualifies for the child discount and extended the age, or brought it down from where it was before. I have 52,000 for punch cards, 95,000 for adult memberships. We do not budget for donations, although I wish we had consistent donations and we could. Birthday parties, I have 7,000. That did increase, and another change is that deposits were previously applied to concessions for whatever reason. And Chris identified that and stopped doing it, so we started applying the deposits where they belonged, and we are anticipating $7,000.
Can we go up on the adult memberships?
Sure.
I mean, right now, year to date, we're at 67.
And usually memberships are sold at the beginning of the year, because it's an annual membership. So do you think that should go down? They do have punch card special, or membership specials again in October.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna
That's when I
say.
usually get a 6-month or a year.
Because like last 2 years was 105 and 122.
Does that include what the VA buys for them down there also?
I imagine,
I think what the VA buys, isn't that,
like an adult
I
discount.
was thinking punch cards.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
what they buy.
So that would fall under.
They're not restricted from getting memberships.
Do you think we can go up to 100 on that, or just leave it where it's at?
If you're all comfortable with going up to 100, I just. Anybody else? I don't think it's too big of a jump, Deb.
I don't think it's too big, we are showing
Yeah.
increase annually.
So you want
Anybody
52,
have any
100?
objection to bumping that to 100? Okay, I'm gonna do that.
52, 100?
What?
95.
95 to 100 on adult
Yes.
membership.
Yeah, 95,000 to 100. Cool. I'll never add that one more zero, but there we go. Once we get through the 701 fund, which is real quick, this one and the 701, we'll take a break, for those of you that are ready for one. Birthday oh, we already went through that. Where were we? Lockers, 9,500. Towels, 9,500. Concessions, $45,000. Showers, $225,000. Black Hills Golden Jewelry, we're selling down that supply at $250,000. T-shirts, $4,500. Swimwear, $17,500. Souvenirs, $3,500. Skipping Rocks, miscellaneous gift shop catches a lot of other items they sell in their gift shop. We have $9,000. Miscellaneous revenues, the monthly sales tax reporting allowance, we have $600. Interest earned, that's from their debt service reserve fund, we have $2,000. Fall River Health Services, rent, we have an agreement with them to rent pool space. I was new in 2020, it did really well initially, and then we haven't had them using it, and I'm not sure, you know, we still have the agreement with them, they still can. I don't know if that has to do with their providers or the people that need therapy, what they're comfortable with. So I have 150 in there, but I'm not sure what's gonna happen with that.
I think their physical therapists that they had utilizing this, one went to Custer and the other one went to the VA. So the two providers that were really utilizing this are no longer with Fall River.
And maybe they'll replace them. I mean, I just think everybody should go to the plunge because it makes you feel so good.
Yeah, you know,
Because that they did physical therapy in that pool.
They did, but I think maybe they don't have the doctors that are ordering, prescribing it, is the word you need, anymore. And I think they need to have their doctors on board with it.
Give you a gentle nudge reminder that it's still available.
Yeah, I think they are aware. They still have an agreement in place where they can, so.
Yeah.
If I can take the 150 out or leave it, it looks low compared to what, you know, when it started.
Well, I know for a while that they were doing some internal cleaning in the house, so that could have impacted the contract.
Yeah, here today is 0.
Yeah,
I would leave it at 150.
it's not a lot, so if it
No.
doesn't happen, it's not gonna be a big
Yeah.
drop, okay. 400 for the recovery of prior year expenditures, again, that's our workers' comp audit refunds. And then I can change this, we increase that by 5,000, so I can drop that by 5,000. That's our operating transfer in, and I got to that number by taking the requested expenditures and the revenue projections, and that was the difference. So since we added 5,000 to adult memberships, I'm gonna drop that number to 281,785 to get them back to $993,810. 281,785 is what I'm dropping the operating transfers in, and then we're back to the same total that we started with, 993,810.
What was that? I've got 988,
That's what it is.
910.
Yep.
993,810.
No, I got 988.
Yeah, because you probably didn't increase the 95,000 we had in adult memberships to 100,000. It's on line 11.
What was that one?
Line 11, adult memberships, we changed it from 95 to 100,000. Don't forget that last zero, it matters.
Five zeros, right?
All of the zeros. Okay, are we good?
6.
Moving on, I don't have the cemetery perpetual care fund on my government funds listing. Oh, I do, oh, thank goodness. It's up with the governmental funds. It's like, it's supposed to be at the end, but that's by number. It is still a governmental fund. So the 701 fund is our cemetery perpetual care fund. This fund receives 1/2 of the payments received for the sales of lots at our Evergreen Cemetery, and it's for the perpetual care of the cemetery. Only amounts in excess of 50,000 can be used and can only be used for the care and maintenance of the cemetery. The rest is permanently set aside in compliance with state statute. I have $2,500 projected in cemetery sale of lots, and I have $25 projected for interest earned for that restricted cash account that we have. but totals, they're fun to talk about, but it really matters by fund.
All right.
Just to add in a little bit of help here on this,
Okay?
having this plunge
Yeah.
on our operating transfers in, explain to me just briefly what that represents.
So I get to that number after the budget expenditure worksheet has been filled in completely by myself and the department head. And so then we know how much money they need based on what they asked for to operate. And then we take our revenue projections, and when there's a loss, then we have to schedule for an operating transfer. And that's what that is. And just like the golf course, that's the budgeted part of it. They also have the water and sewer forgiveness, and that's something that the city started doing a couple years after you started. Auditors required that instead of just giving away water and sewer to enterprise funds, we had to account for it. So we're still allowed to give it away, but we have to bill on actual usage so that the enterprise funds of water and sewer can recognize the revenue, and then they transfer back in the cost of those. So essentially, they don't pay anything for it, but it does affect both our revenue and expenditures in all the funds that utilize water and sewer.
Thank you.
You bet.
What happened to the afternoon?
Yeah, you're doing great. All right, so this is a good time to take a break, if anybody has some.
Absolutely.
As we've done in the past, I think since we got through revenue, we'll try to hit some of the easier expenditures. The ones I have noted in the general fund, and we can go through what pages those are on, if you agree, are mayor and council, contingency, legal, finance, engineer, fire, support services, street lighting, street cleaning, transit, ACO, recreation, senior citizen center, and economic development. The 211 fund is kind of easy, the 213 fund is kind of easy, the 501 fund is certainly easy, the solid waste fund is pretty easy, and cemetery perpetual care fund is pretty easy. So if you all agree, we'll start at the back and start at 701 and work our way up to the general fund and try to get through those tonight, and then save those tougher discussions for fresh minds Thursday night, but give us more time essentially than Thursday night to get through those tougher ones, if we can knock these out tonight within the next couple hours. Any objections to that? No? All right, so 701 is the very last one on your Excel spreadsheet, and it is also the very last page of your budget expenditure worksheet, so page 43. Remember me explaining the purpose of that fund? We have nothing budgeted for expenditures yet. The approximate balance available to spend, so this would be a cash balance that we have in excess of the $50,000 that's required to be set aside perpetually, is about $20,000. So as we get to specifically the cemetery department and the general fund, if there's some projects in there that maybe we could move from the general fund to this 701 fund as an expense, if it qualify as perpetual care of the cemetery, we do have an approximate available balance of about $20,000 for cemetery perpetual care stuff. So nothing projected for expenditures right now. If you're all okay with that, we'll move on to the next one, knowing we might move some stuff if we have to, or if we identify something worth moving after we work on cemetery in the general fund. So the next one I would move to is 4 tabs over. That's Fund 612. It's the solid waste fund. And on your expenditure worksheets, that's going to start on page 36. So if you remember me mentioning when we were going through revenue, 100% of our projected revenue goes to the service provider. So in the event that we underestimate this expense, we'll have subsequent revenue to cover it because it all goes out to the provider. So the first line, services and fees, $250,000. You'll remember seeing that same dollar amount in the collection fees and our revenue for this fund. Repairs and maintenance, that would just be, we're responsible for repairing the garbage totes. So we have $300 in there. Supplies and materials, we have $550. And then the transfer out to the general fund of $10,000. And you saw that in revenue in the general fund as the subsidies or operating transfers in. So our total expenditures estimated for the solid waste fund are $260,850 against projected revenue of $276,000, giving us a projected profit in this fund of $15,150. If you remember, we bought a bunch of garbage totes in '23, and we also bought a bunch more in 2024, so we're not planning any expense here, but that $15,000 doesn't get us very many totes if we decide we need them, so I do recommend that you don't try to spend that extra money, but let it apply to the savings or reserves that we were talking about. Anybody have any objections or comments on the solid waste fund?
Nope.
See, these are pretty. The 501 fund is 1, 2, 3 tabs over on your Excel spreadsheet. And on page 31 in your budget expenditure worksheet. So we have nothing projected for expenditures because we hope the project, the suspended sidewalk project, is done by 2025. That project has had 5 change orders to date, and our contract total is $3,965,567.76. To date, we have paid $2,373,968.14 towards that construction contract. We are also responsible for 100% of the costs related to concrete and density testing, which I don't know how much to anticipate for that. But out of the contract total, $1,591,599.62 remains outstanding on the contract. Any future change orders will add to this, and any additional concrete or density testing will add to that. So I think $1,670,000 is what our SDDOT loan was approved for that we haven't drawn on, and that's just about right for what, does that come up with us? I thought it was 1,697, but was it 1,967? Oh, well, and we are not gonna pay ourselves more than we need to, so $1,591,599.62 remains on the construction contract. We have about $50,000 left in that fund right now as a cash balance to pay towards this almost 1.6 million. So we will this year, potentially if the project is finished and all the billings are done by this year, have to take $1 million, probably similar to what we were looking at before is what we discussed, $1 million from the general fund, unassigned fund balance, and the other 600 and whatever thousand we need from the additional sales tax fund. We can adjust those numbers, but that's what we're proposing. Similar to what we had done, I'm sorry I've gone back and forth on these recommendations to you throughout the years this project has gone on, but if you remember in 2023, we did transfer that money to the 501 fund because we didn't know if we were gonna get that one from the DOT. And then we transferred it back because we got the DOT money, but now that we're facing the other challenges that we know are coming, we don't think it's prudent that we add an over $200,000 loan payment to the 212 fund that currently is $600,000 in the hole without it. Because that kind of kicks the can down the road for future councils to have to figure out how to pay for it. So,
Where did the extras come from?
what do you mean extra?
You said there were extras on the suspended sidewalk.
The 5 change orders?
Yeah.
There are various reasons for them, and I have notes if you want me to know, or want me to list those out for you, but council has approved every change order along the way. The first change order was additional micro pile grout. It added $21,380.25.
The council approved each change order?
Yep. Second change order added $436.80, and it was contractor's excise tax to core construction. The third change order is $18,278.26, and that was to extend the length of prefab metal on the pedestrian bridge from 110 feet to 115. The fourth change order had no dollar amount, but it was a revised support schedule elevation. And then the fifth change order, $20,934.45, was 300 feet of new electrical conduit and wiring to extend service to the cabinet locations. Those are the 5 change orders. To date, for the concrete testing and the density testing, we've spent about 8,300. So I'm not sure what to anticipate for the remaining part of the project, but
And just as a reminder, sorry, I don't maybe it's off topic, but we had to do this because the new road didn't give us any room, we had to have a sidewalk on that side, right?
one way or another, they were gonna put a sidewalk on that side. If we didn't do this one, they were gonna eat up road space and put up a garbage fence.
And they were gonna take half of the sidewalk away from in front of the buildings.
I have to remind myself of that.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
The driving lanes themselves are gonna be narrowed by 2 feet. They're gonna try to squeeze everything in between the wall and existing building.
And they were gonna put this ugly fence, cyclone fence up against the wall and make a trash collector out of it.
So that's our 501 fund. It has nothing budgeted for expenditures. We may be still paying off some of the sidewalk expenses into 2025, but hopefully it's done by the end of 2024. And one way or another, we're gonna have to come up with cash to pay for it because there's no revenue, so that story doesn't change. Any questions on that one? The next one over the bid fund, or 213, that's on page 32 of your budget expenditure worksheet. We have a bid board, and they still have yet to meet to determine how they're gonna break up their 85,000 in revenue. In the categories I have it in, I have 12,000 for the social media position. That's what they paid in the past. The position is currently filled by a temporary person and going to continue to be filled, so I have that there. Publishing is their main expenses. 55,000 has been, Love Advertising is the state's contracted advertising provider, and when we use them and spend our dollars, they match 100%. So 55,000 going towards the matching tourism grant gets the city $110,000 in advertising expenses. The remaining of those advertising expenses or publishing expenses, the bid chooses to help with some billboards for the chamber. They may be changing that. There's some discussion still they're gonna have, but at the end of the day, we are anticipating a $5,000 fireworks supplement, which they've done in the past. They've helped pay to wrap some cars. At the end of the day, they've got $85,000 to spend. So if they move that around a little bit where it gets spent, we don't really mind that. But 85,000 matches the revenue they're projecting. So that fund has revenue and expenditures that balance. Any questions on that one? I'm gonna skip over the 212 fund for now. And we're gonna go to 211, the liquor, lodging, and dining. That's on page 28 of your budget expenditure worksheet. Just 2 tabs over in the Excel spreadsheet.
Which account to what?
11, liquor, lodging, and dining. Building repairs and maintenance, I just used the remainder of the dollars left from projected revenue to plug in that figure. Historically, that fund has not had adequate revenue to cover the 500,000 we spent on the HVAC system here, or the 500,000 we spent on the roof last year, and then the repairs at the depot. So $12,870 is what I plugged in for that number, but typically it doesn't cover the full expenses of those. Telephone is paid for out of this 211 fund here at the Mueller Center, that's $730. It's just telephone services, it's just internet services, the chamber pays for the telephones. And electricity for here and the depot are billed to this fund, and I have 25,000 projected. And then other current expense, I just took 80% of the revenue projection for the liquor lodging and dining fund, and that goes to the chamber. 154,400 is what we have projected. If we don't collect the revenue, we don't pay out the 80%. So I have projected revenue and projected expenses equaling one another in the 211 fund for 2025 with a balanced budget. I'm going to stop real quickly at the total fund 101 general fund before we move into the easy ones, which is the very next tab over on your Excel spreadsheets. You won't see it as a total, no, you will see it on page 28, right above the 211. The total budget expenditures and the total projected revenue, we're looking at in the general fund projected loss of $710,280. So I just want you to keep that number in mind even as we go through these easier ones tonight, so that you know what we're going to be looking at. And then I'm going to go all the way to the beginning of the Excel spreadsheets now and the beginning of the budget expenditure worksheet. And we'll start with the mayor and council, which is the first department in the general fund. So page 1, your budget expenditure worksheets, and then all the way to the right on your Excel spreadsheets. Past all 26 departments in the general fund to the very first one, which is mayor and council. Are we all there? This one's pretty easy. 42,000 projected salaries and wages. Usually come in a little under that because you waive your pay for special meetings, but we do budget for 4 special meetings a year just in case you don't waive that, and like to have that in there because it's not guaranteed. For those of you not familiar, OASI and FICA, those are payroll taxes, 7.65% of salaries and wages. So it's collected, the city pays that, and then employees also have a deduction from their paycheck in the other half of that. So 3,000 budgeted there. Workers' compensation, I have $315 budgeted. Insurance, that's through South Dakota Public Insurance Alliance at $225 budgeted. Services and fees, so we made some changes this year, and I put them in the budget notes. We created a new breakdown for Black Hills Technology professional services based off the number of devices in each department, and we restructured the payment allocation to services, computer software, and equipment. So historically, from before I started, there was a strange calculation we never quite understood for the way they broke down Black Hills Technology with the library, who does have a large number of devices, paying the majority of that monthly fee. The old breakdown had the pro shop 8.7%, Evans Sponge 8.7%, City Hall General Government 17.5%, library 30%, water 17.5%, sewer 17.5%. Well, water and sewer each have one computer, so it didn't make sense, that breakdown. And we worked with Black Hills Technology, 1, to get a good estimate of all the things that we needed to replace or repair in 2025, and then 2, to come up with a better way to break down that monthly fee. And we determined that number of devices is the right way to do that. And then we also wanted to break out the fees for computer software, because it's not a professional service, and then the hardware, the actual server or computer, it really should be in machinery and equipment or minor tools. It should not be in professional services either. So in many of the funds we're going to go through, mayor or departments, mayor and council included, you're going to see a new charge that you never saw before for Black Hills Technology because of that new breakdown. And if you remember, council, they got all new laptops in 2020. So there are 9 actually 8 laptops in use that we're currently using for the breakdown. Now, the weird thing that we already found out about while we're building this budget is, so the police department sent Darcy to a sex offender registry thing, and they gave her a laptop. Well, that laptop has to be serviced by Black Hills Technology. So that increases the number of devices, which thereby affects everyone else's percentage that I'd already calculated. So as we add computers throughout the year, we're gonna see that change a little bit. But right now, I have 1,730 estimated for Black Hills Technologies. We have 2,500 for supplies and materials, and the mayor's been wanting this in here for the last couple of years in anticipation of these projects being done and having a ceremony to acknowledge and celebrate that. So we have $2,500 budgeted this year. Maybe we'll use it this year, maybe we won't need it next year, but probably not gonna get done until very close to the end of the year, so maybe next spring. So we put that in the budget for this year too, 2025.
So as we're talking about that, as Misty said, my vision is it would be nice to have a nice formal ceremony when we get a brand new sidewalk and when the road construction is done, and if it looks the way that we want it. I also recognize that I've been advocating for, we need to make some serious decisions about where we're gonna be cutting. And I would advocate for cutting this. I have no clue what it's gonna cost. Because Mayor Cotty worked very closely with Governor Nome at the time to get the seed money, I guess we'll call it this point, because it wasn't all of it, as it turned out on the sidewalk. You know, my vision for this is see if Governor Nome would like to come back, have Mayor Cotty come back, have previous councils there, folks that have been involved in this suspended sidewalk, have the construction folks here, and just make this a nice thank you ceremony. Is that necessary? No? Is it the right thing to do? I think so.
Could we do it for less?
I have no clue. You know, I would like to have, sort of City Hall or something. Some kind of sandwiches or something, I don't know. Is that catering?
We don't wanna ask the businesses to donate.
No.
Yeah,
That would not be good.
We're on camera.
No.
like rubbing
Just
salt
letting
in the
them know I'm
wound.
thinking of them.
Yeah. But I just think we ought to do something more than nothing. That's why it's here, but I can understand.
Do
So we need to start cutting some.
When the DOT did that luncheon thing, do you know about how much they spent on that?
Which one you think?
Well, they invited everybody to come and have sub sandwiches that they had purchased and had ready, and they had that.
Oh, that
event.
early on?
Yeah.
So it wasn't DOT as much as it was DOT employees.
Oh.
It wasn't part of the transportation, there were a couple of engineers that stepped up and did it. Complete Concrete also did.
Paid for some of it. I just wonder about how much they spent.
This is certainly going to be in the fall of the year, it could be later than that. I have no idea how many people would attend.
What are you thinking about having it at?
Excuse me, because we're talking about the sidewalk mostly, you know. At the sidewalk itself, okay, we're right in front of City Hall. Okay, so if people would come into City Hall, or if the weather is permitting, you know, we do something in Centennial Park. I just think we should do something.
Maybe council people could all divvy up. I'll donate.
What if we lowered it and tried to stay within a budget that we lowered it to, and then took donations if we thought we were gonna exceed it as we get closer to the actual event? Because I would think for $1,000, you could feed a lot of people some way, or I don't know what you had in mind for food. But, you know, something easy. I'm a really good cook too, so I didn't contribute money if I wanted to make wraps or something, but I don't know if that's a commercial kitchen, depending on who you invite or what, but
1,000
everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
to start.
That's 3 years.
Travel and conference, we have 1,000, but we've seen lately, we want to encourage attendance, but other than the registration fees, you guys mostly cover your own food and your own travel, so historically, or year-to-date, we spent $210. Last year, we spent $1,605. I have 1,000 budgeted for this year. I want you to have the available budget, and I don't want money to be a factor for whether or not you go and attend the workshops that are provided specifically by the municipal league are the ones I think are the most valuable. So if everybody's comfortable, it is a decrease, knowing that we were gonna add some in the supplies, so is 1,000 good for you guys?
Talk to me a little bit about, what are we talking about, municipal league conference?
Yeah, they put on an annual conference, they put on budget trainings, they put on various workshops throughout the year. Often they'll have registration fees because they include lunch to attend, and we invite anybody. You're not required to go, but if you're interested, we'd like to do it, and typically the city will pay registration fees and reimburse you for mileage expenses or food during that travel time, but historically, council members don't ask for that reimbursement for mileage or food, but we do.
And where's
cover
this at
registration
usually?
fees. I'm sorry?
Where is it at?
They move them throughout the state, so the different workshops are usually, some are East River, some are West River, and they move them to kind of give a little business to each community as they go. But you gotta be a certain size to host some of the bigger events. Rapid didn't used to, their old finance officer, when she was there, she refused to host any of them. But the new guy has been willing to open up to hosting some, because come West River, it's just Spearfish is the only other town even close to big enough to host some of those. So I'm really glad Rapids changed their opinion about hosting those things. And hopefully we can get some closer to home that aren't just Spearfish. 1,000 fine with y'all? And then
Sure.
another new one, the computer software, $530. That's the annual software cost for the Sentinel one on console laptop. So that's 8 times 66, $528. I have $530 in the budget for a total now, a decreased total of $49,800.
I haven't had anything done to my computer since I got it. No upgrades or anything like that.
Well, it should have automatic updates. Is it updating? Are you
Yeah,
having
it
any
did.
problems with it?
Did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they can remote in, so you might not see.
I have had updates when, when I go to shut down, it says update, shut down.
As long as it's updated, you're good. What?
Since you're 2020?
2021 is when we got the money, or 2020, late 2020, so.
So that software, that's just essentially like antivirus. It's not the Microsoft window or the
No.
Word, Excel,
Right.
Microsoft.
It keeps asking me if I want to upgrade to 11, and I was told to say
Don't
don't.
do that, yeah.
While we're talking about this, because we are paying $530 a year for 8 laptops, I would encourage everyone to use your laptop.
Yeah, more than that, just like.
Got mine.
All right, so we're good with mayor and council. We decreased it $1,500, we're at $49,800. Now we're gonna move to contingency, which is the very next one to the right, and be the very next page on your budget expenditure worksheet. Bill, is this one you identified to knock down?
Yeah.
So I stuck 100,000 in there. I talked to the mayor about it. I decided to leave it in there. If you remember, and for our newbie here, contingent, you cannot spend out of contingency. There's statute that allows us to establish it. We can only do 5% of our total general fund budget. We're nowhere near that. We used to do that. I don't recommend that. We're better than that. But we do have things that come up throughout the year that we didn't plan for. And we tell each of our departments, we can't budget for things that we don't know, but if something comes up, we'll take care of you. Something that you have to operate. So that's what these dollars are used for. The amounts that are highlighted in blue, that's the amount used, not the total contingency that we had. So that also adds to our savings. If we don't spend the contingency throughout the year, or we have some remaining, then that just goes into our unassigned fund balance.
Yep.
I'm comfortable lowering it, but I put 100,000 in there because we've been using a lot of contingency, what?
I said 75, same as this year.
Yeah, I think 24, we projected 102 and we dropped it to 75. It doesn't hurt my feelings to do that, it just means that you only have 75 in contingency, which is just budget authority. If it's needed, you have to transfer that budget authority to the general fund department. You can't transfer it to other funds. You transfer that budget authority to the general fund department. You've given it to, thereby decreasing contingency, but the net effect is zero.
Bill can explain this all
Okay.
because it's somewhat of a new concept.
Yeah, me too, when I first started. So, are you comfortable with 75?
Yeah.
Let's have that discussion. So Misty, Sky and Blue, what we've actually used, there was probably 1 or 2 years when it came to contingency. Previous councils looked at contingencies a little closer than we have the last number of years, and that they really identified, if it's not an emergency, we shouldn't be looking to contingency because it's there to maybe pick up something that was otherwise unbudgeted. So Misty had talked earlier on that, asking the department heads to tighten their spending a little bit. I think this is an area where we could tighten it up a little bit also, and maybe get it down to 70, maybe 65, with the understanding that it's pretty much going to be emergencies for us. Not kind of a slush fund that's easy to use, because we've got something in front of us we would like to get done, but we haven't budgeted for, but, well, contingency's there. Let's just use contingency for it.
We do really have to focus on needs rather than wants.
Yeah, if it's, we need to go to contingency when we need to go to contingency, not when it helps us out of an unexpected expenditure to make us feel good to have.
So like, did we use contingency when we needed to prepare the ground for the playground that we had donated to us? Is that where we got that money from?
I think we used unassigned cash for that, but I could look back. It won't let me connect to our shared drive. I was
Well,
gonna pull
tell
up
us what we used it for last year.
Well, I'm sorry, I can't connect to the shared drive right now to pull that up, but
Okay.
I'd be happy to send you the resolutions that we passed, so you can see, because we pass them twice a year, if you remember, we do it in June, right before new council takes effect, and then before the end of the year, before we're
I
down.
just kind of like to be reminded of what we have used.
Yeah, I'll go ahead
They
and,
went
if you're all okay with it, I'll send you those
And if I
resolutions.
said abuse, that was not where we wanted to go.
No,
I think it just becomes
that was
easy
my
to
word.
use it because it's there.
Right.
And we hadn't budgeted for something that council said, you know what, that would be, let's see how we can get that done. kind of thing. So being able to send it to council, that could be something that we take a look at Thursday night.
Well, I'm okay with lowering it now, but then reminding you what you use contingency for in the past, and then if we need to increase it again, but I don't think we need to revisit it if there's no comments.
It seems like a few years ago, contingency was around 50,000. And then,
In 17, 18.
yeah, and then when we got into the
21.
tax rebate issue, that had to come out of contingency because it was an unbudgeted, and so I think we slid into the end of the year almost by the skin of our teeth because we hit contingency pretty hard, so we had some tire blowout on the heavy equipment. We had some major unexpected expenses, which is what contingency's for. You plan for equipment maintenance, you don't plan for what you think is equipment that's gonna get you through the end of the year, the wheels to fall off. That's what contingency's for.
When I first started, we didn't have department heads tracking their budgets for the year. And at the end of the first year, we used every bit of the 120,000 in contingency and still had budgets in the general fund well over 100%. But we got much better at it when we prepared the budgets. And we've been historically getting better at the use of it.
And
since.
we had some legal fees. We had some lawyer fees plus some settlement issues that were drawn on contingency that we weren't. I don't wanna, I think we're planning better, we're maybe a little smarter, so maybe 60,000, maybe 50,000 is a more prudent number.
What was our thought process when we went from 45,000 to 40,000 to 100,000?
That's what was used, and I only started tracking the amounts that were used on here in those years. Previous, if I just put in what was budgeted, and then when we used it, it went down to 0. So, because it's only budget authority, and when it's all used, then there's nothing left. So in these years with nothing, that doesn't show you what we had budgeted. That means we used all of it. I started tracking in blue the amount used starting in 2022. So, we did budget 75,000 for the last couple years.
We went through some years of a lot of surprises. We had a lot of legal stuff going on that has pretty much been cleaned up. And so we're kind of out of the settlement phase of our lives for a while, hopefully. So it's not like we were acting foolishly with a higher contingency level, but I think we've hopefully moved on from that.
I agree, Bill, I think we do. Make it probably go down to 50,000. Everybody has to have in their head, better be an emergency, or it's not coming out of here.
All right, in 2022, 60 was used, and we were at 45. You have any sense of where we're at this year, Misty?
Yeah, I just signed into the VPN, which slows my computer down, but then I can answer these questions and not count on my little memory. I don't know about that. So, $35,035 has been used so far this year. It approved, and then I already have an amount in a draft for the next one, for the second one. An additional 2660, the pickleball, has been added to that. So, and I just build this throughout the rest of the year.
2,600.
Yep, $2,660. So that would, we had 39,965 remaining after the last one passed, and then that would decrease that, and we'd still have 37,305 left.
Again, I'm not accusing council of, spending it frivolously. Just as we ask the departments themselves to look more closely at what they're gonna spend, we need to look more closely at what's available to us to spend. And this is kind of a department that's available to council to spend out of. And because it's 60, then 45, I think 100 is too high. So that's why it's maybe 75 or 65, and I think Bill, I was closer to what were you talking about? You said
I threw out 75 just because I agreed 100's more than we need. So, but as we've discussed it, I would not be uncomfortable dropping it a
60.
like amount.
60? Or 50?
No.
60? And here, I'll rattle off for you the things in the first half of this year. We agreed $3,835 to pay for 5 years of the software on our QT Pod terminal at the airport. We had done it yearly previously, so that was one of them. We had to pay that independent fee estimate for the taxi lane to HDR. That was $4,200 to get the grant. Hopefully, when that grant comes through and gets approved, that's an expense that we can submit for reimbursement, a portion of it. The Mueller Center, $25,000 for propane backup is what we approved in contingency, and then $2,000 for the chamber storefront. That was for this year, and if you would like me to remind you of what you did last year, I'd be happy to. You don't need to know that. We can put it at 50 or 60. And
none of those were emergency, right?
you determined that they were valid for,
It's
that's
just
how I'm
that
gonna
stuff
answer
comes
that.
up over the year that we
And
need to find
council
money for.
determines.
But I'm saying if we're gonna drill down on this as being emergency only, it's nice to go back and look at how we did it at this time versus how it will go forward. I don't know.
Yeah,
You get used to doing a certain way. you gotta
I
change.
wouldn't be able to tell you, don't do that, that's not an emergency. That's gonna be up to you guys, so.
Of the ones that Misty mentioned, I would say the 2,000 for the storefront is a feel good expenditure.
Okay.
What if it's an absolute necessity and we don't have any contingency funds? Then what do we do?
If you have savings and you're comfortable utilizing it, then you do a supplemental appropriation and you use unassigned fund balance and whatever fund you need to spend that out of.
So the
If it's
department
there.
heads, we're pretty comfortable, they've really got their budgets pretty tight, and that everything is pretty much anticipated as much as they can, so they're not saying, well, I'll just have this for a budget because I can always turn to the contingency if I need to.
They don't plan on using contingency at all.
We've got a couple of opinions on this end of the table that have been kind of
But
like,
Well, if, I don't know if you said prudent, but if we're gonna be prudent, and if the department heads have got their budgets down to the nut, 50 grand, seems pretty simple.
Lawrence?
Well, I agree with what everybody's saying, I was just thinking 60, just to be on the safe side, give a little breathing room on the upside.
it's not like we lose it if we don't use it either.
Right. I'd go
It will
60.
still be there.
Okay.
I'll go 15.
I'd go 60.
I got one,
I'll do 60.
two, 3 for 60.
50.
You're 50, you're 50, I got 3 for 60,
I'd be good with 60.
4 for 60, 5 for 60, 60. Thank you for your input.
Thank you.
I'm changing that one to 60,000.
Thanks, everybody. That was a great discussion.
Bill, anybody remember seeing, was it the American President?
Who?
The movie, The American President, I think, or whatever. It's the one I want to do, but thank you.
Was he the finance person
worked
that
out
went and
real well.
became president, had a finance background or something? Balanced the budget of the.
Oh, Dave, that was
Dave.
close.
Dave was great.
All right.
All right, the next one over is legal, page 3, and just one click to the left. Our current attorneys have a $5,000 a month maximum charge, flat fee, I guess is the way to call it. They also bill us, obviously, when there's copies, postage, or filing fees. So I have 61,000 in legal. That was pretty easy.
So,
Knock, or try to get a discount. Sold. Moving on.
I think we're getting our money's
I
worth.
think,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we're
Big
getting a
time.
really good deal from them, they do good work.
All right, I think finance is fairly easy.
Is there any way we can cut the wages in half? or-
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that we did, on your budget notes, we did remove the second admin assistant that was shared with the development coordinator. So we did cut them by 25%. And then in the development coordinator budget, we cut it by 75% to eliminate that position for now. So I don't think you're gonna be able to cut any other salaries and wages from there. I have 248,000, 19,000 for payroll taxes.
We had, I wanted to discuss that admin or that admin person, because, you know, at the time that we approved it, we all thought it was very much needed, and, I mean, the code enforcer, the city administrator, you guys, you know, there seemed to be a need. Why isn't there a need anymore?
Well, I have 3 people to try to serve in the position, and not one of them found that they had enough work to do to keep them busy. And the way it was set up, as the last breakdown was 75% for the development coordinator, 25% from finance. I did all the training. I can't train for his position. He did none of it. They were extremely frustrated. Both One I promoted to the assistant finance officer, so I got her. The other two left, not happy, not with me or City Hall, but with the job. And so I told Bob that I'm not gonna be responsible for another hire if things don't change. And it's not something I can change. So if you wanna continue to fund for it and hire somebody, do you think the development coordinator is going to be able to supervise
I see
and
in his
manage and
response, and
maintain?
that's what I was really,
Till
we didn't
something
have
changes.
someone as competent as him either in the position, so kudos to you,
True.
But, yeah.
This probably seems like a good year to eliminate the position.
can always add it back in if we need it later. One of my concerns and why I, with the mayor, advocated for this position is our two front desk ladies do a tremendous amount of work and are both probably within 5 or 10 years of retirement, if that. It's about time to get somebody else learning that I don't even know how they do all that they do. I know what I need to know, but I couldn't step in and do their job in addition to mine. So eventually we'll probably look at it again, but the way things are right now, very excited to drop it. Thank you, Phil, for going back. Retirement, you know, there's statute, we have to match 6%. We don't have a choice, so 15,000. Workers' comp, 800. Group insurance, that's our health insurance coverage, 47,700. You'll notice on my notes, I do estimate for a 10% increase in premiums for South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance. Been pretty close to covering that. And then I estimate 10% increases for health insurance while I'm estimating. And health insurance we renew in the middle of the year, so for those estimates, I'm using those figures. Services and fees, I have 8,000. Now, we don't have an election every year. And the last 2 years that we ran an election, we chose not to use the tabulator and to hand count because of the expense. If I could guarantee you that we wouldn't have an election in 2025, I'd get rid of all 3,000 of that. Could we lower it to 1,500? Maybe, but that's gotta pay all the workers, and depending on how many races we have, it would behoove us, if we hand counted and there were 4 wards and a mayor race, to have a separate counting board, which would increase our expenses too. So 3,000 is what I have budgeted. We may not even have an election. We may have a big election. I don't know. So if that's something, if we're looking to cut, that you wanted to cut by 1,000 or 1,500, we could probably make it work. The other things in that 8,000 are our American legal supplements. That 4,000 is that we estimated in 2024 and again in 2025, that came real close to what we needed for the supplements we sent in this year. And then shredding services, we have Good Shred come once a year. We used to just take it to First Interstate and have a free shredding day or week, and we'd take it there, but they haven't done that since COVID. So in order to stay on top of our astronomical amount of paperwork, we have to pay for shredding services, and that might be a little high too. It just depends on how many of the containers we fill up. So election, we may be able to drop if you're interested. The maximum I'd be willing to drop that is 1,500, and then shredding services we potentially could cut in half. But as far as the American legal supplements, if you stop changing your ordinances every other day, it wouldn't be that expensive, but you never know when we're gonna do that, and that's what it has done, so. And their supplemental fees, if you change a word, it's not that expensive, but if you add a section and they have to renumber or classify a number of the pages because of that, then that's when we pay more. So when we're adding things, like when we added medical cannabis, it was a huge expense because we added sections to both our general government and our planning and zoning. So it gets expensive then. This last time we didn't have anything like that, but we changed and added wayfinding. I think there were about 6 or 7, and that our total was pretty, I think 3,800 or something. Any thoughts on lowering election?
You're saying that if we do this, we'll still be okay, right?
Well, I don't know.
Within reason.
Let me get my crystal ball, Larry. I forgot to bring it. You gave me that ball. I would think that we could be okay. I mean, historically, you don't have a lot of people that run against you.
I was gonna say, so you're saying that all of us are going to run for sure?
I would love it if we could stay the same year after year for a while, but I don't have any idea what's gonna happen, so.
So we're gonna have an election next year for the next
For
person
four of
coming
us,
up.
for four of
Every
us.
year.
of us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so if we do,
Well, he'll have to do it because he's appointed, so both of us.
1, 2,
three,
Should have 5.
So there'd be
Five.
5.
And if you had a race in everyone, which is probably not that big of a deal either, but it'd be more expensive because we'd have to hire more people.
This changes everything.
so we left that alone, but then the other one, cut that in half.
Or you could drop elections a little bit and cut the shredding service, and maybe take $1,000 off in total. 500 from shredding, 500 from election.
I'd be okay with that.
This is on
Yeah.
service and fees.
Did you have any cuts on this one, or
I
is this a
didn't.
surprise cut?
this new one from.
Does anybody have any objections to lowering that to 7,000? No? Okay, in my notes, I'm just gonna, not that we have to stick to it, but I'm putting 2.5 for election and 500 for shredding.
Good.
Ooh, not 500,000. Okay, 7,000. Most publishing is paid from general government, but if we had like a position opening or something, 550 in publishing. There was a change effective July 1, and I haven't gotten a straight answer yet, but to the price that publishers can charge us. So I don't know if you remember that, but I think it was a House bill passed to change that from the way it used to be to a new way, and I'm trying to figure out what impact that might have on us. I don't think it would be significant change, but I haven't gotten a straight answer on what this thing is. Many of the supplies are paid from general government. We have 1,500 in supplies. Travel and conference, we have 4,000. We might be able to lower that a little bit, but we have a new city administrator, although he comes to us fully educated. AFO, and then our South SDML membership dues for city administrator, HR, and FO are all paid out of here too. So that might be able to go down if you're willing to cut travel and conference. I would be comfortable with 3,000 or 3,500, but I do again like to have the opportunity for our staff to attend any and all training, especially those put on by the municipal league if they're interested.
Didn't we just talk about the municipal league and some other
Mayor and council.
mayor and council?
Many of, so they have separate organizations, like they have a city administrator group, they have a finance officer group, they have an HR group. So those all have specialized trainings too. They have a street maintenance group. They have an airport managers group. They have sheriffs and police. So you'll see some of those trainings in several.
I've gone to many conferences and I enjoy them all, but I don't, later on somebody else's nickel, I don't know how many are really necessary.
Year to date, well, the previous years were under 3,000, and year to date is gonna hit around 3,000. So I could see that 3,000 being
I'm comfortable with
tolerable.
that. And then, I would say from my experience, just to respond to what you said, Gary, all of them have been beneficial for me.
I just throw that out.
And I
for
think that
discussion.
you get out of the way, put into it, so I don't wanna waste money to have people go, if they end up just going to lunch with their friends and not gaining anything, but all the workshops I've gone to municipally have been highly beneficial to my professional development
Yeah,
and
and I,
ability
you
to
know,
do that.
putting into it and getting out of it, I highly
Yeah.
support that. But I've been to conferences, people just go there for a party and they don't get anything, you know, they go to the sessions. And, so.
Get out of the way, put into it,
Throwing that out there.
good point. So I'm lowering that to 3,000 if there's no objections.
You mentioned is the newbie, you have a lot of questions. I remember the first year I was on council, trying to understand all of this. And at that time, I think the South Dakota Municipal League membership was like $5,000, I forget what it was. But I was questioning, you know, do we need that or not? And it almost sent Misty in the cardiac arrest, suggesting that we not do a South Dakota Municipal League. And I didn't understand why until after you go to the training and understand just the quality of the training that they provide, especially for new council members.
Sure.
It is important to go there. It helps you understand everything that we're responsible for. When it comes to training the municipal league, they do a good job of putting local training on with the annual training in Pier. If you decide to run next year,
it was just a discussion question.
You know, it's absolutely a valid point too, because what we invest in our employees, they have to put into it to get the ROI on your investment. And I don't know, I think many don't go as opposed to go and then don't get anything out of their training. I think we see more people just not going to those because they don't care than those that go not getting anything out of it.
I'm the guy that goes and sits in the front row and takes
Yeah.
notes.
When I went to the HR school, that's when I did most of the work on these budget worksheets. I didn't go out at night. I didn't go to the hospitality room or to the park for supper. I stayed in and worked in a quiet time, so I have a couple of things we lowered on that one. Looks like $2,000 in total, so I have a new total of $346,190. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't go through the rest of these. So travel and conference went down to $3,000. Cell phone, $300. Our current city administrators reimbursed $25 a month. Machinery and equipment, we need a computer upgrade for our admin assistant that'll come out of this budget. And then computer software, 1/3 of our Banyan point of sale comes out of this budget. And then our American Legal Internet renewal, which is different than their supplements. That's the computer software that runs the ordinances. That's $550. So $715 there for a total of $346,190.
346?
$346,190.
Thank you.
I'm 1,000 high somewhere.
We took 1,000 off of services and fees, and then we took 1,000 off of travel and conference.
Okay.
If everyone's okay with that. Oh, and that's 15%.
So we went.
Oh, no, I only had it at 4,000 before. So,
From 4,000 to 3,000.
correct.
Where we buy that device from? This budget,
It's, so I haven't asked, we haven't bought it from anywhere yet, because it'll be 2025. And I have estimates, these are just estimates, depends on what the cost of the machine is, 2025 we go to purchase it. And he has $850 for each computer. Black Hills Technology, and I think it's probably HP, if you want to know the details on it. I just asked him to estimate for me.
Is it gonna be a laptop or is it just?
It's a desktop for her, she doesn't need a laptop.
Many PCs out there that are watching.
Yeah, can they run all our softwares? You're welcome to.
I mean, it's not a big deal.
Well, but.
Something I noticed because that's where I.
Yeah,
live.
I appreciate your input with this stuff. So if before 2025, you want to have like a Teams meeting or a conference call with our IT guy to talk about what he recommends, this is not a strength for me, so I rely heavily on the experts here. But
Needs a drop in the budget, $900.
850, 900, yeah. So if we're all good with finance, the way it sits, I think engineer is gonna be easy enough to jump to. That is 2 over. We're gonna skip over general government buildings and go to engineer, which would be page 6 of your budget expenditure worksheet. Look at that low salary and wages. We're getting our wages. 20% of his wage comes from this engineering budget, and the remaining is split 40-40 between water and wastewater. So that's why that's so low. And then the payroll taxes, the retirement, the workers' comp are all split the same way. The group insurance is split 40-40-20. Unemployment 110, insurance 325. He has 400 in vehicle repairs, routine service for the van. He has nothing spent year to date. He's amazing how he can keep vehicles running. That white van, he barely ever put any money into it. I think Rick put like $1,000 into it the first year and used it 8 times, and he used it all year. So I don't know, you could probably drop 100 or 2 off of that, but 400 isn't very high, so.
Did we get new tires?
I think when he first got it, it got new tires, because it's fairly new to him, it's used, but we had to
That's a
force
cheap set of
him.
tires, it's $400.
I think it's got good tires on it now. Gas, oil, and diesel, we have 500, and where's he at year to date? I mean, really just doesn't use it that much. I guess he's 53%, so that's a good number. Travel and conference, he has historically not used travel and conference dollars. We talked about 2024 him being able to do that, but I imagine with the project, he just, we certainly could. He doesn't have anything particular identified, so if you wanted to cut that in half, I think probably fine there.
Does he need to do anything to maintain his PE though?
He does that on his own because that's his. So his continuing education credits, he does that on his own because he takes that with him if he goes. Same reason our water and wastewater employees pay for their certifications. That we give them a raise if they get it, but they pay for it because they take it with them when they go.
So you're saying 600?
600 going once?
On the travel and conference?
Yeah. Down, cutting that in half. And he'll still have some available if there's something he wants to attend. Telephone is 300. Cell phone, he has a smartphone, it's split 40, 40, and 20, so we have 65. Machinery and equipment, Black Hills Technology recommends a new workstation plus 3 monitors, plus an AutoCAD subscription below. That's an annual AutoCAD subscription. We're not sure if the light version or this more expensive version is gonna work for him, but we had a conference call this morning, or a Teams meeting, with Tracy and Black Hills Technology. He's pushed back a little bit on getting rid of his current AutoCAD system. He likes it, it works, we own it. But it is a security risk because of its age and it not being able to be updated. And they have offered to bring him a HPZ6 workstation and some monitors and get a trial of the AutoCAD LT, the $510 version, which I have budgeted in here, this year at no cost to make sure it'll work for him. But this is what they're recommending. He definitely needs to update his computers.
Is he a power user?
Is he a power user?
Like, is he 3 monitors and like?
He should be, but right now he has
More.
3
It doesn't.
computers
Sure.
that he's using.
Does he, we won't know, so he doesn't know what he doesn't know. And a
Well,
lot of people make
he's
it,
got 3 computers, so it's thought it'd make it easier for him.
3 monitors.
So, as Missy said, the Teams meeting was, I think, very productive this morning. Tracy recognizes that it's time for him to get rid of his old system. Currently, he's got AutoCAD on, one PC, and then all of his other stuff, email and those kinds of things, he does on a laptop. The hardware he's got in AutoCAD is a 2011 version. AutoCAD doesn't even support it anymore.
Any of the functions don't work like they used to.
Yeah, and he's pretty confident that the LT version will work versus the full version. But it's good that he'll be able to try it out for a month and see how everything works. Currently, it'll be more to Travis than maybe some of the rest of us, but he's currently on Windows version 7. And if he gets warm and fuzzy, he knows the system, he knows the equipment. So he's just always been resistant to incurring the cost, and he doesn't see any great benefit in upgrading to the newer version, but we're at a point where
It takes
security
hours
wise,
to
he needs.
learn it all.
Well, if he wants, let me know, I can come get him trained.
On AutoCAD?
Not AutoCAD, no.
Oh.
Like the new 11 with 11.
So with our small change in leaving in the new workstation plus the 3 monitors, again for 2025, and the AutoCAD annual, the LT annual subscription, we're at $34,885 in this budget. We dropped $600 off of it.
Does he store stuff on the shared drive too? Like his drawings and stuff, or is that like, does he goes on his?
I think he has, the drawings are in AutoCAD, and that's part of the problem, is that's not secure, it's a vulnerability, and having that hooked to our shared systems is something that they're trying to fix. I'm gonna look at our shared drive, I don't even think Tracy really has a folder in here, I think he saves everything in his laptop.
Well, you gotta look at reality, AutoCAD's constantly changing too.
every
I
day.
made that
Every day,
change, I
I mean-
still have 305.
And with that change, I think he needs to have something
dropped it?
better.
I dropped it to 600.
You know, that training budget he's not using, this would be a good spot for that, for AutoCAD training.
Oh, well, there is a AutoCAD representative Black Hills Technologies worked with that's willing to sit down with him with this training version and work through that stuff. Oh, you just got to come up with it. Okay, there you go. You were still in it, right?
No, I just went back up to it, see it's still at 35.
There you go.
Okay. I don't know what you did, but thanks.
I just auto-summed it again and it updated, so.
Oh, okay.
Everybody good to move on to fire? Sure. So that's 2 over, no, 3 over. We're skipping police, we're skipping support services, and we're going to fire. Usually, we talk about support services. No, I guess we can. Do we want to? We have time. We'll get through it. Yeah, let's go back to support services, that's page 8. This is dispatch. What we have built in the budget is highlighted. When I sent out the email, my budget notes had the wrong number in red. It is 1025 is what they have asked us for. It's what the police chief put in the budget. We're still talking about that. I don't know if tonight's the night we're gonna make any changes to that, or if we're gonna leave that.
What percentage of an increase is that? From
Well-
last year, or this year, I should say. Because we were talking 3%. What percent does this come up to? So it's more than a 3%.
Significantly more than 3%.
Okay.
So I'm being careful in what I share because Bill, Misty, is that correct? Were you there? The executive meeting? No. It was Misty.
No. Me and
This is embarrassing.
you and I missed it.
All right. Yeah, we met with the county commissioners, we had a conversation with them. Talked about what council has publicly said that they support, 2 or 3%. And then the 20 that they're asking for, we left the meeting with the request that they go back and take a look. The city of Hot Springs does not feel we should be responsible for dispatch for the ambulance service or the fire department. To go back and take a look at their data and make sure that only things Hot Springs would be responsible for and see if their request changes. They meet this Thursday on August 1st. And the understanding, the expectation is that after that meeting, they will come back to us with a new figure. And then we'll discuss that Monday night in executive session with the full council. But for the purposes of getting the budget approved, I've asked us to delete the 20 M that the county commissioners had originally said they were going to be requesting.
Which is a little less than a 25% increase, and 23 to 24 was a 50% increase. So we did a 50% increase, 23 to 24, and then they're asking for an almost 24.24% increase to 2025 if we go at this. And so I'm gonna leave that in there until we hear, we'll touch back on that one on Thursday.
Leaving the 20 M would cover whatever it might be, that ideally it will be less. See what they come back with.
Fire is the next one, page 9, and then just one tab over to the left. I had mentioned to the, I think the mayor, I'm not sure who else was there, but we need to be careful when we talk about dispatch, to not say we were doing anything wrong all those years by not raising it, because we haven't done anything here either. And we don't need to tell people that they need to ask us for more money. So 90,000 is what I have projected in here. It's what we've done, as you can see, historically. 2016, they also got 90,000, but for whatever reason, it was budgeted for from the 212 fund and not the general fund, probably for budgeting purposes. Probably to balance the budget. I wish I could remember. I can't. But we did still give them 90,000 in that year, and that's what I had projected for 2025. We don't hear much from the fire department. They don't provide financials. They don't come and give reports to you, but they do a good job, and we're all happy. So I don't know if anything needs
Well,
changed.
don't they do a lot of fundraising though?
Well, Nate also can collect from insurance companies and stuff, and
Well, yeah.
I try not to get into the weeds of how other businesses operate, because I have a hard enough job trying to figure out how we operate. So when it comes to how they raise their revenue, and if this makes it for them or not, they're happy and you're happy, I'm happy.
Do they submit a request like all the others, or this is just expected from us?
This is the way it's been. They do not submit a request. They do not give you updates. I do not get financials.
I was approached today
Me too.
on
Bob?
telephone.
Yeah, I got him what he was looking for.
Did you?
Yeah.
But for history, 15 years ago, we had some, don't get the dates correct or not, but the city was in a shortfall of funding, so they cut the amount they were going to give to the fire department.
'Cause Is that where the 70 came from? Because he was saying 70, and I was like, I don't, even back to 2013, I don't see 70.
No, I didn't either, so anyway, that amount of money, never did get that back. And so they, like everybody else, is hurting and wanting more funds for the city, knowing city's not rich. And
Are they wanting more? Because he didn't ask me for any more. He was fine when I said 90.
I'm not gonna go there.
Well, whatever you budget here is what you'll have, so.
So anyway, that's kind of the history of what happened. It was taken away because they said it was that deficit back then, and they never did see that amount again. So, never mind.
My records only go back in these Excel spreadsheets to 2013, which I started in 2014. I inherited the 2013 budget, filled these, and then hopped out in there. And it was 85,335 in 2013, same amount in 2014. In 2015, they were buying some equipment, and it went up to 100,000. 2016, it went down to 90, and it's been 90 ever since.
Keep it there.
Okay. I'm gonna skip past development coordinator, skip past highway, streets, and roadways. Skip past snow removal, go to street lighting, which would be on page 14, thank you. This one's pretty simple. We have contracted service, lighting maintenance, and I think I have some notes in here, and street lighting. Our current contract with them expires in March 2026, so all of 2025 will be under a current contract with them at $750 a month, plus miscellaneous repairs at $2,000. My question, I've asked this before and we wound up with a higher cost contract, but I'm gonna ask it again when this one expires. What would the service be if we had no contract? We have new lights. They're supposed to clean, they're supposed to come and change the light bulbs, but when they do come to do things outside of that, we pay for it anyway. So when I started, we were paying a monthly maintenance fee to Golden West Technologies for the phone system in City Hall. I canceled that in 2014, and I paid one time for a service called Golden West. I just wonder, with all new lights, are we getting our money's worth when we're adding up to $9,000 a year? If we have to pay when they come down to do anything special anyway, the lights are clean, we don't need them to clean the lights. The bulbs should last a good long time, because they're new and they're LED, but we can't do anything till 2026 anyway.
Do they go out into the neighborhoods and do all those lights?
No, it's just street lights.
The street lights in the neighborhoods, the corner lights?
Those are electricals.
Those are
Light
electricals.
bills? Okay.
Yeah, different lights are different, by who they are, but they mostly service lights that are bypassing our main highways, and then Black Hills Energy is most of
And
it.
hasn't there been a problem in the past with them coming every month?
Well, there was before too,
Yeah.
and so when I was like, we need to look at this, then we went from like $500 and something a month to a new contract for 5 years with them at $750 a month, so, because they thought they could find somebody to do it better, and they ended up not being able to. And this company bid higher, and we signed the contract, but I think we might be at a point in 2026, when we talk about this again, that we may want to either look again for somebody else, or consider giving it a year and seeing if it's worth it.
I go with that.
So
Or put it down to like, what's the usual service call? Like one service call
it just depends on.
budget for a service call.
Yeah, a few,
Yeah.
we could budget for a few, I see. But that's not for this year because we're still under contract in this year. The next one, the 15,000 for repairs and maintenance, that's to replace one light that was hit and the base was destroyed on the bypass. We couldn't figure out who did it, so we couldn't claim against anybody's insurance. That's the cost for us to replace one of those new lights on the bypass. And it was damaged this year, we don't have money for it, so we're hoping to put it in the budget to get it replaced this
That
next year.
intersection is nasty for that.
I don't think so, the intersection, it's a
No,
little,
it was,
Water fill station.
no, it's not even an intersection, but they hit and ran.
We have had ones knocked down at the intersection.
Yeah, we've had them knocked down on the whole bypass, but usually there's, the cops are called, there's the,
Insurance.
yes, and then we can claim their insurance, and then I have you do an automatic budget supplement when we get the insurance money.
did anybody ask the horses what they saw? There's 4 of them over there.
Well, we did try to see if the license plate reader that was installed could have identified, and because they were able, something was left, a piece of the bumper or something, so somebody was able to identify that was like a Dodge pickup or something. I don't know all the details, but, so we were like, oh, we knew that, and we could tell which vehicles we went by, but we couldn't get access to that data, so. Supplies and materials, lighting repair supplies purchased for in-house repair, Library Street light globe replacement, we have $1,000 in there. And then utilities at $80,000 as an estimate for insurance, or for electricity. $107,000 in street lighting. You could choose not to replace that brand new light that got struck on the bypass, and we could save $15,000, but I think you should, so it's in there.
Oh, that's one of the lights that stay in as well.
One of the Cobras, yeah.
Oh, do they expect us to replace it?
Yeah, it's in their maintenance agreement.
It's up to us, yeah, they won't
No,
cover it.
That is not an option to not
Well,
replace it.
we could say we can't afford it this year, we're gonna do it in 2026, but
What lights on?
this one that was struck on the
Oh,
bypass, the
so it-
15,000. But I agree, that's why it's in here, we should replace it. It's taking care of our infrastructure. So we good to move on from street lighting, and we're leaving that at
Are we gonna
107,000?
drop the 11,000?
No, we can't, we're in a contract till 2026.
Oh, okay.
Or, on the in-house repair, library, streetlight, globe replacement, things like that, if it gets hit by a meteorite or
Hail.
hail or anything like that, is that covered by insurance?
No. No. When someone hits our streetlights,
No,
their
no, I'm
insurance
talking
covers
about
the
the next-
damage. We don't cover the streetlights.
I'm talking about supplies and materials.
Yeah, we don't cover our streetlights with insurance. We have so many of them. The cost would be,
I
and
just-
usually when something breaks, it's a small, it's $300 or $400. If somebody hits and damages a light, then they typically would pay it. So it wouldn't, we wouldn't even file an insurance claim for $1,000 of lighting repairs. Good question though. Are we ready to move on from street lighting?
Yep.
You know, it's such a.
Yes?
Roll call.
All right. Street cleaning is the next one immediately over on page 15. It's another easy one to talk about, but difficult to estimate. And when we get to snow removal and maintenance, it's important that you note that city maintenance employees share in the highway, streets and roadways, snow removal, street lighting, street cleaning, cemetery, and parks. So our maintenance people, they're spread between all those places. So when we're estimating the street cleaning salaries and wages for snow removal and the salaries and wages for all those other departments I listed, if we exceed in one area, hopefully we're under in another, because it's the same people doing all the work. So we have $8,025 projected for street cleaning salaries and wages. If the folks that are doing these tasks are getting paid out of this fund, then they're not getting paid out of another fund. So if it goes over, hopefully we have additional salaries and wages in another fund that offsets that. We only had one street cleaner forever. Now we have a couple people. We've bought out our street cleaner, and they have been actively cleaning the streets. And I tried, a few years after I started, to convince the Department of Legislative Audit that we should just combine all of these into maintenance, because it gets so hard to try to use my crystal ball and figure out how much snow we're gonna have and how much time they're gonna have to use to remove snow, but they shut me down. And so these are prescribed. Legislative audit says we do these services, we have to split them up this way. I wish I could put it all together and just let the maintenance guys do all these tasks and have it in one place, but here we are. So with that $8,025 is an estimated street cleaning salaries and wages. That's how I calculate the OASI, FICA, and the retirement. We did buy out our street sweeper. So room costs and miscellaneous expenses, we have at $4,000. Supplies and materials at $200, gas, oil, and diesel at $4,000, for a total of $17,340.
Do the guys, do they split up their time, like, do they keep track internally?
They have
That's
to.
gotta be a hassle too.
Yeah, and I wish we could just put them all together, but I didn't win that battle, so. All right, no changes to street cleaning, told you that would be an easy one. So now we're gonna skip a few, we're skipping nuisance and complaints, we're skipping airport, we're skipping cemeteries, and we're gonna go to transit. When I had you stop on the general fund tab, I put in the totals of the budget requests, and this is one of them. Prairie Hills Transit,
Not at this one.
yep, thank you. Prairie Hills Transit requested $15,000 from us. I sent out those requests to you, and that's where this amount came from. I don't know if you noticed, but in their budget for 2025, they put the city gave them 10. So I think they're anticipating they're not gonna give them the full 15, but that is what they requested.
I'm recommending we give them 7,500.
What page was that, Misty?
It is page,
819.
I didn't even get to it yet, I can't tell you. 18, or 19, yep.
Okay.
We gave them 5,000 last year.
I know I'm awfully gracious this year.
So far. You all saw the requests from them. One thing they wanted to point out, if you did take the time to review their financials, they provide the best financials in any place that we ask them for. Those financials are for all their ridership, not just the city of Hot Springs. So they also gave you breakdowns of the ridership in Hot Springs. I have $7,500 as a recommendation. I recommend 5, but I'll get the vote. I'm interested in hearing from the rest of you.
You recommend what?
5, that's what we did last year. I mean, honestly, if I had my way, we would tell other organizations we appreciate the services they provide in our community. Hopefully they appreciate the ones we do, and we're each responsible for our own operations. But that's,
What you're thinking about the 7,500,
We've given them 5 in the past. I guess I was being gracious. I'm okay with 5.
I think this is a year we can't really be increasing
Yeah.
stuff that we've set precedents with.
I would go with 5.
Unless we cut harder in other areas and take care of people as we want.
all of our other areas take care of people.
Yes.
You know, it's wonderful. I mean, they do a phenomenal job. It's highly needed.
But my thought on anybody that's a 501c3 is free to fund fundraise in a plethora of other areas.
And seek grants.
Yeah.
5,000? Going once? Changing that one to 5,000, unless anyone objects. Bob, do you think ACO is a good one to talk about tonight, or should I put that off? It's the next one over.
Rabies and animal,
Yeah.
pretty,
Right.
20 else, let's talk about it.
Okay, so the next one over, and the next page, page 20, is rabies and animal control. We have a contract with Battle Mountain Humane Society, and $24,000 pays for all their services for the year. I have not heard of any requested increases. Previously, we had paid quite a bit more, but we eliminated the position in 2022 and contracted for ACO services at that time with Battle Mountain. In addition to some animal control, they do all the animal boarding as well.
Bob Nelson Jr. I know that we had a conversation one time, they were supposed to be giving us a monthly report. How's everything going?
I've been getting it every month.
Oh, that's very helpful.
Yeah. And we still have some hiccups every once in a while, but for the most part, it's better.
I feel like the hiccups are just like fireworks, you know, when it comes to animal control in a town. You're gonna have half the people that are happy and half the people that are not. You're never gonna please everybody, there's always gonna be issues. I never knew fireworks were like that until I started this job, but there's always gonna be people that have complaints, and in my opinion, they're our best resource locally to help us.
Yeah.
Well, the changes that were made, that were talked about, those are the concerns that I had. They're following through and doing what they're saying, they're doing.
So for 2025, okay to leave the projections the way they were?
Let me look at this a little bit here in front.
You know, I think we still have,
Page 20.
we still
Okay,
have an
okay.
issue of the general public not knowing that we are paying somebody for ACO services. Because you always see on Facebook, well, it's too bad we don't have an ACO, you know, they, we do.
Thank you, Jane, for sometimes responding to those things, because we don't let our tongues, but. Yeah.
We're under contract with them for $24,000 a year.
And
$2,000 a month.
Just my personal observations, it seems like we are infested with feral cats.
We are, cats are a problem.
We are.
And they are actively looking for solutions that you or anyone else can help them with.
You know, at times, I don't know how, if they're doing it routinely, but they have been doing a spay and release.
They do a
That's the
lot
only
of them.
thing that they can do.
It's owners, it's people being responsible owners.
They found a lot of barns for a lot of cats.
They are full of cats. People keep having kittens and giving away free kittens all day,
Well, if
every
everybody
day.
was responsible, we wouldn't need them at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome to America.
Taking
It's not way
responsibilities,
over.
I suppose we have a picture of the problem.
So for now, I'm gonna,
I think I've got 3 feral cats up in my neighborhood, but, they don't like me, they don't like my dog, but they like the guy across the street because he feeds them.
As in all things, it's a two-sided conversation. If Battle Mountain isn't doing it, then as a city, how do we do it? There are some discussions that we still need to have at Battle Mountain, so that we understand what they're able to do, they understand what our expectations are. But it does come down to, if they're not doing it, who's gonna do it?
And we still have a policing issue as far as the leash laws. and Picking up after their dogs or whatever, because
There's no
on
consequence.
Freedom Trail, I've had several people complain that they're walking, they're walking and people have their dogs off leash.
have you seen the signs that the Boys and Girls Club put in their front yard?
No.
Our kids play here, please don't let your dogs poop in our, I mean, it's not just on our Freedom Trail, it's throughout town, and then again, it's responsible owners. And if you don't, this is how I raise my kids, but if you don't have a consequence, if there's not a punishment, you're never gonna change behavior. Because if you tell me to do it and I don't wanna do it, if all you do is tell me, I'm still gonna ignore you. And I know we're not parents, but we have rules. And so,
So how do we police it, you know?
Well, I'll tell you what I did when I saw, this wasn't a dog doing it, it was somebody's little kid squatted and left
Oh.
it dumped. I followed that kid back to his campsite. Hey, Grandma, is that your granddaughter? No, it's my niece. She just pooped over there on the ground.
I'll show you where it is.
She sent somebody over there with a shovel.
You're not wrong, my wife will do the same thing, she sees a dog
Yep.
messing in the yard and people are with a bag to pick it up. She'll grab a bag, she'll go right up there.
She's out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
Come here.
Well, I know the conversation was had one time about signage, putting signs up, you know, and I get that, I get that, but let me finish, okay? There are people that I know out there that, personally I don't know, but I know that
Out there.
some people will listen and look at signs and say, oh, okay, well, I wasn't aware of that. There are those that will argue the point that, well, even though there's a sign up, you know, this is their natural thing, this, you know, how can we restrict an animal to do this or that? You know, so, well, I mean, what can you not do? Putting the signs up, to me, quells any argument. The sign was put there for that particular reason, this is the consequences of your action, this is what's going to happen to you.
We have signs in our park, why don't we put a sign everywhere for
But-
everybody?
If,
Well,
to me, if there's more signage put up, I think we've had this conversation, you know, I mean, if we're gonna be a park, or we're gonna be a city, we're not gonna be a Gestapo, but
I think we have to fine people, and then we let the chat room say, man, the city's been fining people, and then maybe
These are our
we'll
ordinances.
change some behavior.
yeah.
But we have signs. We have more signs than we need.
Are we still
in more
looking at
places
option
than we
B?
need.
What's
For what?
plan B?
We didn't have an option B. We
Looking at
said we
option-
needed one.
We're looking at option B that may be able to cut that budget item in half. But we're not there yet.
Yeah, we're not prepared to do that yet.
Well, I see people feeding these feral cats, I see people feeding the deer. And I don't think that's good for the animals. I just don't
It's
think
against ordinance?
it's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Well, I personally appreciate all the conversation about what people do, go through and everything. But unless we enforce it, what we say doesn't mean diddly squat.
Exactly.
Well, if Plan B works, it may not help what the budget looks like, but it may positively impact unassigned fund balance come next year.
All right, so ACO, I'm leaving at 24,000. I have two more on my list of things, and we have at least 30 minutes, so. Recreation is the next fairly easy one. It's the next one over. It's page 21 on your budget expenditure worksheets. You'll notice an increase to the request in salaries and wages. She is not against having you decrease that, but she projected for the first time ever using an average of $15 an employee, what might be a little bit high, but all the programs that she wants to run and how many instructors and how many assistants are required, and came up with that number doing that projection. She'd like to extend summer gymnastics to 6 weeks, add theater, girls softball, which I found a bag full of softballs and some old bats in the basement of City Hall today, and more winter rec.
We had it when I was that age.
Well, we have some bats from 1996. I found a book in there, and that's when it came from.
Wow.
So 39,000 might be a little high. You might be able to take a little bit off there. But if she's going to expand the programs in the way she wants, she'd like something close.
Do we know what the income was from what was brought in? I don't remember.
Yeah, we could go back to revenue and look at the year-to-date recreation revenue, because it's just one category. Recreation program fees year-to-date are at $95.60.
What page is that?
Page 2 on the revenue, and it's about halfway down. In 2025 budget, we have 13,000 as a total.
And that's gone up from 3,500.
Well, that, we didn't have programs because we didn't have a director.
17,000. So it's down from 22.
What would happen if she cut 10,000 out to bring it back to a 2024 level?
Whatever has to happen to make that work.
I mean, I don't wanna, got somebody really working it to improve the program, but that's also nearly a $12,000 increase in expenditure from last year, or from this year.
It has expanded to year-round more, it's more and more year-round, where it used to just be in the summer for little kids. Now she's going into the adults, we're increasing quality of life for all the senior citizens moving into our community.
I know.
She really
This
did.
is a forecast though, right?
Pardon me?
This is what she's forecasting what it's gonna cost.
Right.
What about 30,000 if we cut 9?
I'd go with that.
I'd go with that.
Yeah.
That's only an increase of 3,000, 2,700.
Well, year-to-date, we're at 14,349, and that's through July. If you don't agree with 30.
I mean, if she's wanting to do something, yeah, I get that. Start low, see how it pans out. If it does, then think about an increase in the next budget. I mean, that just to me makes good sense. But that's my personal opinion.
Does she need more money to retain people? Or is it, this is
No,
salary?
this, yeah, but this doesn't set the wages. We do that. So this is just an estimate using $15 an hour for all employees, which is probably a little high for assistants. And then estimating fully staffed for all programs she wants.
So you're saying that 27 is what's projected was, but where's it at right now?
14, so that would still be 2,900 if we got to the end of the year.
Yeah,
So
we were
if
talking about,
Bill's 10,000, bring it back down, right, Bill?
well, we think 29 might be a little low, so 30 or
30.
35.
I'd go with 35.
That cuts it by 4,000, which I'd be able to make a small decrease to the payroll taxes. I just recalculate that if we drop it to 35.
So you got something on your mind, Bob? No, he had that look on your face like,
35 or 30?
30.
35, 30. More votes?
30.
30?
I like 30.
30? 30?
30.
Linda?
30.
I think 30 with this double what she's, that's right, with what she's projected to spend this year, right?
No, she.
She's at 14, that'd be 28, yeah. And that's through July, we're almost done with July. I printed these July 24th, so.
Well, the whole year would come to like 28,000, so that's only an increase of $2,000.
5 months left, not 6. And most
This
of
is
the programs are
52%
summer.
of the budget.
It is, but we're more than 52% of the year at the end of July.
I'm good with 30, everybody else is.
Okay, I'm gonna change that to 30 and then give me just a moment to do some quick math. 1.65.
What? I'm saying it's 35. Can't do a whole lot with an extra 2,000.
If I change that one to 30, I can change the payroll taxes to 2,300.
Is that fine?
Yeah, so the next one down.
2,300?
Yep. No, it was at 2985. And it's going down to 2,300. That's okay.
So before the changes you made, I think her budget increased with 46%. So with the 2 changes, it's down to 11%.
Workers' comp, I could probably lower, because that's based off the first 15,000, no, that's not what I put in. But it's based off the salaries and wage expense. So if we lowered that, I could probably lower that to 700. And then, if you're okay, I'm gonna leave unemployment at 325. It might be able to be lowered to 300, actually, have at 600, that is Black Hills Technology, 216, and then the certifications, $200 per person. 200 for publishing. Again, she doesn't publish much, but if she has some job openings or she wants to publish for programs, gives her a little. Insurance, vehicle repairs, gas, oil, and diesel, and cell phone were all inactivated in 2024 because they were no longer necessary. Supplies and materials is at 2,000. That's for various activities, indoor soccer, roller skating, kickball, and winter open gym were some that she had noted. The travel and conference, $600, is for the Red Cross Learn to Swim registration fees, and for Gabby to get WSI certified. And then machinery and equipment, sports engine online registration software is $800, and the Sentinel one for her laptop is $66 annually. And I would say that that sports engine online software was probably one of the best things that she did for our recreation program. And I thought that there would be more heartburn and headaches for the families that used to fill out the paper forms to switch to this, but she did such a good job and made it so seamless. For those that can't do it, she can log in for them and do it. It saves her time. It makes scheduling easier. She has emails to communicate with everyone in the classes. If for some reason an instructor can't come, she can grab a list and send out text or emails from the software. It's been easy to track as the revenue comes in directly to our account, to pull up and figure out where that goes, so that's definitely worth it. So with our changes.
Well, Misty?
Yeah.
On the certification for Gabby, is that every year? Is it 2
I
years, 3
think
years?
for her to be WSI certified is a one-time thing, that the Red Cross certification is annual.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And she might have to do some continuing stuff for that WSI, but I believe that's just, you get certified as a water safety instructor.
I think it's a one-time deal, and Red Cross, I think it's
It's
just the first aid,
It's the ability to certify
yeah, I think
people.
if you want to certify, I think it's $45.
So with our changes, we're at 37,591. Senior Citizen Center. Got it. Next one over, next page. The only folks I never have to remind or ask have their budget request. Even though the person that gives it to me changes almost every year, whatever system they have in place to make sure they remember to do this, they do a great job, and I appreciate it. And they have requested $4,500 again for 2025, and I sent out the request to you complete with financials. Any input? Nope. All right. Yep. Leaving it, and then we're gonna skip past parks, the library, and the Mueller Center. We're gonna stop on economic development, which would be page 26. Now, this budget has changed over the years. In 2025, we have offered the chamber $2,000 to continue their storefront pageant in 2025. The Boys and Girls Club got in their budget request, and they're requesting $10,000 from the city. So I have a total of $12,000 in grants to others. You gave nothing to Boys and Girls Club last year, because they didn't get a request in on time, but they did this year. And then, 25,000 was requested by Shedco. And we have $30,000 budgeted for the presidential tax rebates that were new in 2021, and I hope go away by 2028 or 2029. You can't get out of those expenses. You have future council committed you to those, and we'll have to continue to do it through the 5 years that they're all eligible for it. What did you hand out, Mayor?
An email that came from SDSU talking about the impact for the Energize Conference in Hot Springs. So that will relate to the conversation with Shutco.
Economic development, kind of lower tab. Outcome, 5, 1, 2, 3, 5 over.
Any discussion on any of these numbers?
Somebody else want to lead off?
Or you can take it away.
Well, first of all, I wish I would have worn my Grinch outfit.
What outfit?
Grinch?
Grinch. Yeah.
Okay, what I see here is the grants to others, was that window project?
2,000 and then 10,000 to the Boys and Girls Club.
Oh, okay, that,
So my proposed cuts were 0 to Boys and Girls Club and stay at 20,000 to Shedco.
Any other thoughts?
I think Shedco is our economic development department, and if we had a position in-house, that would be a $60,000+ job.
It used to be the chamber, and we do pay them $160,000 a year.
Well, they need to be cut that much then, because they're not doing the job anymore. Shedco has brought in this couple housing projects that are in the works. She's brought in all sorts of different things. But, we've seen the reports she's done in front of council. So I think we get our money's worth out of her.
Are you objecting to lowering it to 20?
I think she's worth 25.
I'll give Bill spots.
I think boys and girls, we need childcare in this town drastically. We need to support that somehow. I would say cutting that in half at least though, because they've not gotten anything
From us.
from us. But we do need childcare in this town.
I don't disagree with that, but I don't think it's the city's responsibility to provide childcare. And if they weren't starting out at $700,000 in the hole, I wouldn't even suggest that we knock $5,000 off of Shedco, because I agree that I think Shedco's doing an amazing job. I just don't like the hole that we're trying to climb out of.
We need grocery stores too. We need farm bars and we need dollar stores.
we don't supplement those.
We need all. Everything is important that we have, and we're lucky to have these organizations in the town. Does that mean that you cut from your responsibilities to cover it?
Well, as far as a Boys and Girls Club, I think the parents do support that. They pay
Yeah,
for those services.
If you read through the stuff they submitted though, they try to keep their fee very reasonable. And they also offer scholarships for their very low fees so that nobody gets turned away from coverage. They're 501c, they can apply for grants.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm with Deborah when it comes to economic development. Somebody's got to do it. And if the city doesn't have a position to do it, then we need to look to who can do it for us. And Shedco has been doing that for us. I've been a strong advocate of getting Shedco increased over the years. I appreciate council doing that when you felt it was appropriate. The email I shared with you was because of Andrea, the Energize Conference came to Hot Springs. It wouldn't have happened without her having been to other communities and recognizing the impact of it. It happened at an awkward time for us, and it was difficult to get around some of the places in town, but the business has certainly benefited issue compiling all of the responses from the people that were at the conference. Andrea has been a part of the conversation with housing for Fall River Health System, and it looks like that is going to be coming together. We can't talk about it yet, but it looks like it will be coming together. She has been a part of those conversations. She's been a part of the conversations of trying to figure out how to utilize some of the land out at the airport, and see if we can't get some kind of business park out there. Andrea has been the economic development for the city of Hot Springs. Like Bill, it's not easy, but because I'm the one that asked Andrea to go ahead and put 25 in, until Bob Misty and I sat down and looked at the budget and saw, oh shoot, this is huge. So I'm with Bill to go back, cut Shedco by $5,000. As far as the Boys and Girls Club, if we were gonna cut something up there, in my mind, it'd be cut the chamber storefront pageants, and give that to the Boys and Girls Club. I think the state chamber storefront, that's a feel good.
Yeah.
They need it less than Boys and Girls Club needs it.
So give Boys and Girls Club more than they asked for?
No, Bill was advocating for cutting that. In my mind, if we were gonna cut Boys and Girls Club, if that's your direction you wanna go, I would advocate for cutting the storefront pageant and get that to 1,000, Boys and Girls Club. I think, I've said ever since I've been on council, how a community deals with the youngest of us and the oldest of us says a lot about who we are as a community.
And we do give to the senior center.
Did we kind of commit ourselves to the storefront already?
Just this year, the once.
Oh, okay, okay.
I think they have an expectation that it will continue. But
They can utilize some of the money they get from the 211 fund. Still continue.
I was gonna say, I think as a principle that if we're gonna do return on investment with Shedco, that we try to keep that. Even in bad times, when we cut other places that aren't as, like, we're not getting a return.
We're gonna be getting good economic impact with taxes from the housing down the road that she's been.
So if we, let's say we give them that extra 5,025, I mean, what could that 5,000 turn into? We need to know where to find. I mean, I'm certain you could pull from somewhere else $5,000.
You know, I abstain from something, and boy, if I could say what I wanted to right now, yeah, but, you know, I think 20,000 to Shedco and 5,000 to the Boys and Girls Club. We've already talked about, I voted against the 2,000, but still, we still as a council voted on that.
That was for this year.
That was for this year, yes. Yeah. So that's, keeping my thoughts to myself, this is where I feel, this is what I feel. And it's a hard decision to make. I mean, there's pros and cons to this. Yes, I get that. But I do concur with the mayor that, I mean, if we don't take care of our elders and our children in this community, that's our, you know.
What do you have to cut? Because you have your own business you have to also take care of. That's your responsibility. And if you choose to spend this money here, that's fine, that's on you, but you are going to be cutting from your other responsibilities in order to satisfy this.
Well, in Cuba, Deborah said, or Travis was spending money to make money. So Shedco, is that kind of, is that the way we're seeing it?
Well, that's how I see it.
Well,
Some of us see it that way, I just don't believe it.
There have been previous council members who have accurately had the conversation of, what have you done for us lately? We gave you $15,000 last year. Point to the business that you brought in for that $15,000. Well, it doesn't happen that way. Shedco can't even talk with us about that they're involved in, hoping that it will come to fruition. Sometimes it doesn't. But if the conversation isn't even happening, we're not gonna see growth in our community. So,
Yeah,
there are gonna be times where we don't see an immediate return on it. Andrea brought in bond cars when Amida closed. That was Andrew, that was Shedco. So there have been some down years where we haven't seen businesses coming in. This Energize conference is huge, in my mind.
And some of the stuff she does, it's taken like 3-4 years. You know, some of the stuff takes years to come to fruition. But it, down for the future, it pays out.
Everything we've done so far, Misty, where are we at?
Well, you haven't even really touched.
We haven't got to the bad. and
Yeah,
ugly
you're
parts
still
yet.
$646,395 of a loss.
That's better than 700. We have come down.
Sorry.
We're in the right direction.
We haven't made those really hard decisions yet.
Right.
I have to agree with Bill. Don't see any way around it. I mean, I appreciate the fact what Andrea does.
It's still 20,000, so like.
Yeah,
It's,
Yeah,
which
I-
is the most we've ever, 2023 was 10, 22 was 10, 21 was 10, 2020 was 9, 2019 was 5. 20 is still, and it matches what we gave this year, and it's
But-
twice as much as we gave the year before.
Oh,
No, go ahead,
No, no,
I
I
was
just-
waiting for you to say.
Oh.
Go
Like,
ahead.
I do appreciate what she's done, I've had a lot of conversations with her. But on one hand, the numbers that on this piece of paper don't justify the extra money. And then things we can't talk about don't justify other money. And she's been doing a great job on what she had. Keep doing it.
So, just to clarify, you agree with Bill, 2,000 for Boys and Girls Club, 20,000 for Shedco?
Yep.
I'm still 2,000, 5,000.
2,000 for Boys and Girls Club, 5,000 for
No.
Shedco?
No, 2,000 for Shedco, 5,000. 20,000.
Work for this year.
My body's starting to.
This is why we stop at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, my body's starting to get washed out.
Yeah.
I think I've gone over my limit, but
Uh,
yeah.
So,
The 20,000
For
and then the
Shedco?
5,000 for the kids.
and 5,000 for Boys
Yeah.
and Girls Club. Right.
Like I said, I needed to bring my green suit. I'm okay to swap the 2,000 from the window thing and give that to the Boys and Girls Club. Because I'm not sure I can support 5,000 for the Boys and Girls Club, because it's not like we don't support kids everywhere else in the city. We have an amazing park system. We have a pretty amazing recreation system, even though I beat up on that too. We provide a plunge, we do a lot. We have a lot of, we've got a Mueller Center, we've got a lot of public safety that indirectly supports the youth, so we're not ignoring the kids. And so that extra 3,000 is gonna come into play somewhere else. That's not minor, so I'm gonna, I'll just shut up at that point. I'll be repeating myself otherwise.
I have to agree with Bill. I think we do offer a lot for children in town. I would go along with those.
Eliminate chamber storefront pageant, 2,000, Boys and Girls Club gets 2,000.
I agree.
I agree with that.
I agree with Bill.
We
I'll
can
go
all
with
agree
that.
on that one?
And Shedco to 20,000?
Right. And Shedco to 20.
Yeah.
Oh. Did the wrong thing.
Don't give them my numbers, okay?
got fat fingers there, Misty?
Yes, so I changed grants to others to 2,000. I eliminated the note that we're going to support the Chamber Storefront pageant, and I changed the Boys and Girls Club note to 2,000. And I changed promoting the city Shedco from 25 to 20, not 2,000. I almost did that. I have residential tax rebate highlighted. That's the estimate I have. We had one more person fall off this year for not submitting the paperwork on time. And I have asked the Director of Equalization to give me an updated estimate. I may be able to lower that by a few thousand, so I still have it highlighted. It's at 30,000 right now for a total in the Economic Development and Assistance Department of 52,000. And if I get an answer by Thursday, we may come back and revisit this one.
Okay.
Okay, help me out here, Misty.
Yep.
Item line 3, what are the numbers?
2,000, and that's to go to the Boys and Girls Club.
2,000.
Misty, in your notes, or line item number 3, you have 2015 through 17 pass-through ambulance building, CDBG.
Yeah, just because if somebody looks at those numbers, we had 163, 251 in 2015 and 245,749. That, remember, we acted as a pass-through agent for that, and those funds had to run through this, even though it was at no cost to the city, the revenue and the expense went out. So I just wanted users to know what those numbers were reflective of.
Oh, those are notes from previous years.
Yeah, not for this year, but if anybody looked back and said, hey, we used to spend, you know, all this money, why aren't we doing that anymore? That those were related to a pass-through grant.
So line 3 is 2,000, and line 4 is 20,000, correct?
Correct.
And then 52,000 total, okay.
Right on.
I was right.
I know you were, all right, you know.
It's 8:51.
Cut your cut twice,
That
once.
brings us to 9 o'clock. Everybody okay with
Journey?
calling it an evening?
Sure. Good job.
Make a
We need
motion to adjourn.
Oh, I make
Yes,
a
we do.
motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Take a motion, say, yeah, okay.
They are, and Deborah?
Discussion,
See you Thursday.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, bring your really sharp pencils for Thursday, because we're not.
And your bridge suit.